Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your patience. Let us begin the International Symposium of the Institute for AI and Beyond. My name is Mika Ohki. I am a project researcher and a university research administrator at the International Research Center for Neurointelligence, WPI-IRCN, the University of Tokyo. It is a great honor for me to serve as your Master of Ceremonies today. First, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to all of you for taking the time to join us today despite your busy schedules. We are delighted to have more than 1,000 participants attending this symposium, both online and in person. The Institute for AI and Beyond was established in 2019 as a center of excellence. Its mission is to bring together world-leading knowledge and expertise in artificial intelligence, AI, and related fields through a joint program between the University of Tokyo and SoftBank Corporation. This year marks the 6th edition of the International Symposium organized by our institute. The theme of this year's symposium is Toward New Science with AI and Beyond. Our mid- and long-term research initiatives have already produced numerous research achievements, and the targeted new academic fields have now become clearly defined. Today, we will present and share the outcomes of these efforts with the international community, focusing on 3 newly emerging academic fields and their key research results. Before we begin the main program, I would like to share a few important announcements. First, please refrain from recording audio or video, taking screenshots, or taking photos during the symposium. Second, kindly set your mobile phones to silent mode or turn them off during the sessions. Third, we have simultaneous interpretation available in English and Japanese. For online participants, please click the globe icon to switch languages. You can switch languages anytime during the symposium. For on-site participants, please use the translation receivers provided and select your preferred languages. Channel 1 for Japanese and Channel 2 for English. Finally, after the symposium concludes, we kindly ask you all to fill out the questionnaire. Your valuable feedback would be greatly appreciated. Now, let us begin the program with the opening remarks. First, we will hear an opening address by Teruo Fujii, President of the University of Tokyo, via video message.
東京大学総長の藤井輝夫です。本日はご多様のところ、ビヨンド AI の国際シンポジウムにご参加くださり、誠にありがとうございます。現地で出席することができず大変残念ですが、ビデオメッセージにて一言ご挨拶を申し上げます。はじめに、ビヨンド AI 事業に日頃より多大なご支援をいただいております宮川社長をはじめソフトバンク株式会社の皆様にこの場をお借りして深く御礼申し上げます。ビヨンド AI 研究推進機構は2020年の設立より毎年度末に国際的な視野で広く AI に関して議論をする場として国際シンポジウムを開催しております。6回目の開催となる今回も対面、オンラインともに多くの登録をいただきありがとうございます。皆様の関心の高さを感じているところです。10年の計画で始まりましたビヨンド AI 事業もちょうど折り返しを過ぎたところです。これまで AI と諸分野との融合により新たな学術分野の創出を目指す基礎研究と事業化を通じた 社会貢献を目指す応用研究、これらを両輪として進めてまいりました。特に基礎研究の成果は目覚ましく、事業開始時に設定をした最終目標である3つの新学術分野の創出についてはすでに達成できたものと考えております。具体的には物理と AI の領域からは知能の実験物理学 Experimental Physics of Intelligence、 脳科学と AI からは脳 AI 融合 Brain AI Fusion、 AI と社会からはクリティカル AI スタディーズという分野が新たに創出されました。本シンポジウムではここまでの基礎研究の取りまとめの場としてこれら3つの新学術分野について発表いたします。一方、事業化を目指す応用研究については CIP 第2号が昨年の9月に事業会社化しまして株式会社医療画像ラボとなりました。CIP 第1号から新設された株式会社ヘミリオンズと合わせてビヨンド AI 事業からはこれまでに2つの会社が設立されたことになります。このようにビヨンド AI 事業では CIP 技術研究組合という制度を活用して事業化を進めることが新たな研究領域の創生に加えもう一つの事業目的となっています。これをさらに加速するため経済産業省とともにプラットフォーム型 CIP について検討を重ね、昨年9月にはその最初の実例としてビヨンド AI 技術研究組合を設立いたしました。ここでは試験研究を複数のテーマで並列的に進めるとともにテーマ間の柔軟な連携が可能となっています。今後はこのビヨンド AI 技術研究組合を中心に新会社設立だけでなく既存企業内での新規事業化も含めて応用研究の社会実装を推進し直接的に社会に貢献することを目指してまいります。これまでのシンポジウムでもご報告申し上げましたがビヨンド AI 研究推進機構は一昨年から毎年1月に開催されるワールドエコノミックフォーラムのアニュアルミーティング、いわゆるダボス会議ですが、このダボス会議に併設して AI ハウスダボスを運営しております。特に今年は AI ハウス全体の企画の中心となるストラテジックパートナーとして AI とデザインおよび初等中等教育における AI をテーマとする2つのパネルをホストしました。私自身も国内外のさまざまな分野のリーダーとともに登壇し AI の実装やガバナンス等今後の展開について議論を深めました。今年もスポンサーとしてこの AI ハウスダボスをご支援いただきましたソフトバンク様に改めて御礼申し上げます。このようにビヨンド AI 研究推進機構は AI に関するグローバルネットワークの構築と国際的な議論にも注力しております。本日の国際シンポジウムもその一環でありまして今回はビヨンド AI より新たな科学へと題してこれまでの基礎研究を取りまとめ3つの新学術分野に関する発表と議論を進めてまいります。シンポジウム全体の構成および脳科学と AI のセッションの進行については大木健一教授にお願いしております。このシンポジウムをきっかけに本日ご参加いただいております皆様とビヨンド AI の実現に関わる諸課題を共有するとともに今後も皆様と一緒にその実現へ向けて対話を続けさせていただきたいと思います。そのようなお願いを申し上げまして私からのご挨拶とさせていただきます。本日はお集まりいただき誠にありがとうございます。
Next, Junichi Miyakawa, President and CEO of SoftBank Corporation, will deliver the opening address via video.
ソフトバンクの宮川でございます。2020年に東京大学の皆様と立ち上げた ビヨンド AI 研究推進機構は設立から早5年経ちました。この5年間で AI を取り巻く環境は劇的に変化してまいりました。生成 AI の登場を経て、昨年は AI が自律的に判断し行動するという AI エージェントの時代へと移行してまいりました。そしてついに今年は AI は物理空間へと広がり、フィジカル AI が実装される年になっていきます。AI の進化のスピードが加速している中で、世界の潮流の中でビヨンド AI は AI の最新の研究成果を社会に還元する取り組みを進めてまいりました。2023年には株式会社ヘミリオンズ、昨年の9月には株式会社医療画像ラボという医療ヘルスケアの事業会社を設立いたしました。さらに昨年10月にはビヨンド AI 技術研究組合を中心に研究を事業へとつなげる取り組みを始めました。今までにない研究と新たな事業を生み出すプラットフォームとして大変期待をしているところでございます。AI の急速な進化を社会の力に変えていくためには、国や大学、産業界が一体となった取り組みが必要であります。AGI、ASI へと進化していく中で、我々は AI とともにどのような社会を築いていくべきでしょうか。その問いに対し、ビヨンド AI は研究と実践の両方から向き合う場として、今後もその役割を果たしていきたいと考えております。6回目となる今回の国際シンポジウムでは、ビヨンド AI より新たな科学へをテーマに、AI と物理、脳科学、社会の3つの分野について発表が行われます。AI と先端科学の融合から生まれる新たな知見を日本を代表する研究者の皆様からご紹介いただけることを大変心強く、また楽しみにしております。ビヨンド AI の取り組みも残り4年余りとなりました。これまで以上に連携を深め、より大きな成果を目指して進めてまいりたいと思います。最後になりましたが、東京大学並びにビヨンド AI 研究推進機構の研究者の皆様には、日頃より多大なご支援をいただき、誠にありがとうございます。今後とも変わらぬご支援、ご協力をお願いいたします。ありがとうございました。
Thank you, President Miyakawa. I would like to invite Masami Hagiya, Director of the Institute for AI and Beyond. He will introduce the Beyond AI Joint Project and explain the purpose of today's symposium.
Thank you for the kind introduction. So the Beyond AI Joint Project is a collaborative project between SoftBank and the University of Tokyo. In this short talk, I introduce the Beyond AI Joint Project while explaining the main topic of this symposium. The Institute for AI and Beyond is the core organization of the Beyond AI Joint Project. It consists of two kinds of research, basic research and applied research. The basic research is called mid and long-term research, and its goal is to create new research fields, especially by merging AI with other academic disciplines. As I explain later, since the basic research has already achieved its goal, it will end in March, and the Institute will shift its main focus to the applied research. The applied research is called high cycle because it is expected to create new businesses in a relatively short period of time. Even shorter research prepared for high cycle is called pre-high cycle. For making new businesses, we use the system called CIP, which stands for Collaborative Innovation Partnership. A CIP eventually becomes a new company. I will explain about CIP in more detail later. This slide shows the activities of the Beyond AI Joint Project in 6 years. At the end of 2019, SoftBank and the University of Tokyo made the joint agreement for collaboration in the area of AI. The Institute for AI and Beyond was then founded in May 2020 at the core of the Beyond AI Joint Project. The Beyond AI Joint Project is expected to continue until 2030. We have set these key goal indices, 10 businesses and 3 new research fields by 2030. This slide shows the areas of mid and long-term research and their leaders in March 2023. There were 11 research groups in total. The mid and long-term research has been conducted in 4 areas: physics and AI, super AI or advancement of AI, brain science and AI, and AI and society. Except super AI, the remaining 3 areas are interdisciplinary and intended to merge or integrate AI with academic disciplines, physics, brain science, and humanities in general. Even in the area of super AI, Murayama and Tanaka are physicists, and they were also trying to merge AI with physics. These are the current research groups of long-term research. The Beyond AI Joint Project is at the halfway point in its 10-year period, but the results of its basic research have been remarkable, yielding more achievements than anticipated. From each of the interdisciplinary areas, we have established a new research field. We thus have already created 3 new research fields in total and have achieved the key goal indices for the basic research. Experimental physics of intelligence from the area of merging physics and AI. Brain AI fusion for merging brain science and AI. Critical AI studies from AI and society. The 3 new research fields will be reported in the following sessions of this symposium. The symposium itself is titled Toward New Science with AI and Beyond. This symposium is the 6th of the series of international symposia held by the Institute for AI and Beyond for disseminating the outcomes of the basic research and promote global discussions. We have another activity for promoting global discussions, which was also mentioned in President Fujii's speech. AI House Davos is a satellite activity co-located with the World Economic Forum, held in Davos in January every year. It started in 2024 with the initiative of ETH AI Center and has been holding panels, roundtables, social events related to AI. The Institute for AI and Beyond has been participating in the activity since its beginning as a main partner. These are the panels organized by the Institute for AI and Beyond so far. Now, let me focus on applied research, whose goal is to create new businesses. Our approach to creating new businesses is to combine deep technologies owned by research laboratories of the University of Tokyo and skills of SoftBank engineer groups. This approach to creating new businesses is different from ordinary startups from universities and M&A of existing businesses. Here is an example. Professor Igarashi's high cycle research project, in which AI fitting technology was gradually enhanced, achieving an extraordinarily realistic virtual try-on experience. This research started in 2022 as pre-high cycle and ended in March 2025 as high cycle. It is now one of the research themes in the new CIP and will soon start a new business by SoftBank. Here is a demo video. The right image is the actual movement, and the left image in the large display is the result of real-time virtual try-on. Here is another example. Professor Takamichi's soft voice is a technology that utilizes AI to soften customers' aggressive voices in call centers. This research started in 2023 as pre-high cycle and ended in September 2025 as high cycle. While the research is continuing in the new CIP, the business by SoftBank has already started in this month, actually last week. That is, soft voice is now sold as a product. Now let me mention CIP. The CIP system was designed by METI, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. In general, a CIP consists of companies and universities as members and conducts proof of concept research for commercialization. A CIP spins off or becomes a joint stock company whose stocks are shared by the members of the CIP. So the university will eventually gain profits from the shared stocks. We made 2 CIPs. The first CIP spun off a company called Hemilions in April 2023. Its business is to provide the platform for electronic healthcare data. The second CIP became a new company called Medical Imaging Innovation Lab in September 2025. The new company collects medical image data from patients, anonymizes the collected data, adds teacher data, and provides those data to AI companies, research institutions, and so on. As we made 2 CIPs, we also realized disadvantages of individual CIPs. One CIP for making one company is too much work, especially authorization by the government is required for establishing each CIP. We thus planned and created a bigger CIP, which we call CIP platform, for one research area, but for multiple research themes. It is expected to successively spin off new companies. It also enhances collaboration among multiple themes and incubates new research themes. This new CIP started in September 2025 with 7 research themes, including the AI fitting technology and soft voice. In a new CIP, we plan to achieve the key goal indices for the applied research. That's 10 businesses, either by making new companies or starting new businesses by SoftBank. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Director Hagiya. Now, let us move on to Session 1, Part 1. This session will feature presentations from the fields of AI and physics. We are pleased to introduce today's first speakers, Professor Hitoshi Tabata, Professor Kenichiro Mogi, who will be serving as the session moderator, and Professor Eiji Saitoh. Dr. Tabata is a professor at the Graduate School of Engineering, the University of Tokyo. Dr. Mogi is a senior researcher at Sony Computer Science Laboratories, Inc., and also serves as a visiting professor and project professor at the Graduate School, the University of Tokyo. Dr. Saitoh is also a professor at the Graduate School of Engineering, the University of Tokyo. The theme of this session is Toward Building Fundamental Physics of Intelligence.
Right, so I just found out that I am the moderator, so let's start. We have in this session a really wonderful series of talks about the physics of intelligence, and this might not be everyone's cup of tea. However, physics is probably the greatest source of innovation in today's world. So to go beyond AI, we do need physics. So Professor Saitoh, maybe you would like to start with your presentation? Or?
Okay, so first I'd like to mention what physics is. Okay, so physics is a field to seek to understand all things in the world with a kind of a unified and universal way by using mathematics. Okay, so about 300 years ago, Isaac Newton showed that the motion of stars in space and the motion of the matter on Earth, for example, the apple, these two follow the same equation motion, same physics law. So basically, it's very surprising because they are looked very unrelated. The motion of the stars as it's a kind of superhuman phenomenon, like phenomenon in the divine realm. It looked like having nothing to do with the motion of apple, but in fact they follow the same physics law, very simple. And then we now know that almost all things in the world are governed by the same physics law. Okay, then the physics world almost expanded to everything. Then, what about intelligence? So basically, we live things, and our brain are made of matters, and it should be should follow the same physics law. Yet, intelligence emerged from them. So, it is possible to find very simple physics law, which can be responsible for the essential function of intelligence. So this was motivation of the field. It used to be like that. So before this field, so there are the two fields of the kind of the AI physics fusion field. The one is the application of AI to understand the result of the physics. The other one is the kind of a numerical simulation field. So some kind of the just the intelligence-like phenomena appears in the numerical simulation. So it can be interpreted as a kind of a function of intelligence. But I want to go beyond that. So I want to find the law which can be responsible for the essential part of the intelligence. So this was our result. Okay, so do you have any, do you have anything to add, Professor Tabata?
At this stage, okay, Professor Tabata, do you have anything to add at this stage?
Yeah, so as the Professor Saitoh Sensei mentioned, when we think and understand the happening phenomena, so we need to something very simple. So the equation, something is very usable. As I mentioned here, this Newton's equation as well as the quantum equation is very usable. Therefore, I think we'd like to apply some of them to fit to understand what is intelligence.
Right. So, I think I really love your approach of asking what would be the universal equation for intelligence would be. Just like Newton found that the same law of gravity is, governing all these phenomena in the universe. So, yeah.
Equation motion.
And I know you have lots of slides from here, so maybe you like to show us your wonderful slides from here?
So
Yeah, please, yeah. Now the fun starts.
Okay, so
this is the fun part.
All right. So this is a kind of a concrete result. So why don't we ask some of our young researchers to share some of their results. So first, Dr. Yun-san, could you give us kind of overview of recent results on the topic?
So let me introduce our research. So we formulated machine learning problem as a many-body physics problem. In this problem, a system follows an equation motion so that a specific thermodynamic state is automatically realized. We perform no explicit minimization, such as stochastic gradient descent. Instead of minimization, our question was, what kind of physical law would force these particles to settle this to the target state? By working backward, we derive the equations of motion for each particle. This shifts the focus from finding the minimum to define the dynamics that naturally lead to the desired state. We implement this physics AI framework into a neural network known as a predictive coding model. In this network, the fundamental feature of adaptive system is to generate expectation for its surroundings, rather than passively receiving information. Hence, unlike standard discriminative models that maps inputs to outputs, this network utilizes output-only structure. It constantly synthesizes predictions from the network states. We derive the equation motion for this physical system.
Okay, thank you very much. So, thank you very much, Yun-san. So this is a kind of our result. So this is a neural network. Usually we did a minimization of the loss function, but we didn't do that. Instead of the minimization, so we used we looked for kinetic equation motion for the neural network connection parameters. So by using this formula, so we calculate the time evolution of the neural network. So this law governs the fluctuation. So there is no minimization of some loss functions. Nevertheless, this neural network automatically appears recognition function, and looks like this neural network can recognize a number. So this is a digit recognition.
So at this function
automatically
at this stage,
appears.
it's quite interesting that fluctuations, not just noise. They can
Not
actually,
just noise. So
they can actually help the computation.
Yeah. So this function emerges in the fluctuation.
Oh, that's a really wonderful discovery, I think.
That point is kind of the quantum fluctuations.
Yeah, it's a non-quantum fluctuation. This is just thermal fluctuation. I showed some quantum feature later, but this is just thermal fluctuation. Okay. So it sounds like there's a neural network in the thermal state. So we found a good equation motion which govern the fluctuation of this neural network connection parameters. So via this thermal fluctuation, automatically this kind of recognition function appears.
And also, we should know that this is quite realistic because biological neural networks are so full of fluctuations. So,
Yeah, it is important point. So one of the motivation was like that. So yeah, so today's AI, all basically based on the minimization of the function, but we don't do minimization in our kind of mind.
Great.
Nevertheless, we can make it a kind of intellectual function.
Right. Thank you. So maybe next slide. Yeah. Professor Tabata? Oh yeah. Okay. Your side. Okay. From you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So the next one is okay. So this is a kind of opposite direction. So the motivation of this one is there. Can AI understand our real physics law? Okay. So this example is a quantum physics. So quantum physics is far beyond our intuition. So basically, humanity can understand in any quantum world because it is very far beyond our daily life. So we just use it via mathematics. So our set of properties, can AI understand the quantum world, quantum physics? So to answer this question, so we calculated the we have constructed AI to reproduce quantum fingerprint. Okay, so I'd like to ask Dr. Yokoi-san to give an overview of this research.
Thank you very much. So, in this research, we have constructed an interpreter which converts quantum mechanical signals into human understandable information. So in our everyday world, electricity follows simple rules such as Ohm's law. But in the picture of classical mechanics, electrons are treated as particles, and resistance arises from the collision phenomena with impurities. In this case, resistance behaves as a smooth function of external parameters like applied magnetic field. However, in nanoscale devices, microscopic devices, electrons behave as waves governed by quantum mechanics. As a result, the resistance in nano devices shows very complicated patterns. At first glance, these fluctuations look like random noise, but they are actually determined by the fundamental laws of quantum mechanics, that is, the Schrödinger equation. And these patterns are fully reproducible. Therefore, we call them quantum fingerprints. These fingerprints contain microscopic information about the device structure, but they are incredibly complex and nearly impossible to decode using only human knowledge. To bridge this gap, we turn to generative AI. Okay.
Great.
So,
yeah.
Next slide.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh,
so
sorry.
Our AI-based research focuses on two main approaches. First, we developed a decoder based on variational autoencoders, and we also implemented the conditional diffusion models. These models in AI are effective at extracting hidden information from complex data and translating it into a more organized space. These networks convert the quantum fingerprints into microscopic structures and electron densities in the real devices, which are understandable to humans. The left-hand side, the VA model maps the interference patterns of quantum wave function into a latent space, which encodes the characteristic features of the images. The decoder then generates the interference patterns from the complicated quantum fingerprints using this latent space. In this latent space, the model successfully distinguishes between quantum and classical pictures by identifying whether wave function interference is present or not. On the right-hand side, our diffusion model successfully reconstructs the interference patterns through a denoising process guided by the quantum fingerprint as a condition. Then this animation shows the generation process of the interference patterns based on the machine-learned probability distribution of the images. By combining quantum mechanics with generative AI, we have created a powerful decoder for the nanoscale information. This bridge between AI and physics helps us better understand quantum mechanical phenomena. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So
Wonderful work, yes.
Yeah, so this is, okay. So I'd like to add some comments. So the right-hand side, you can see some of the very complicated data. This is called the quantum fingerprint. So it is as a result of the quantum mechanical interference effect in a sample. So it is too complicated for us to understand. But this is an important signal from the microscopic world, in the quantum world. So it is too complicated for it to understand. So we have made a kind of a interpreter of the quantum signal, which can convert the quantum signal into our human understandable data, which is the microscopic structure and the electronic density in the sample, so that we can understand what happened in the world.
Oh, this is a really wonderful example of how you can use AI, in this case, diffusion model, to make the quantum states tangible, internal state of the quantum system tangible. And also, quantum fingerprinting, this is a technology that can revolutionize computing in artificial intelligence, isn't it? I mean, so you just Google quantum fingerprinting. All these wonderful ideas about, application.
I think so. So can I show
yes,
some
please.
result on that? So yeah,
yes.
It's just what I said. We can apply this quantum fingerprint to make a new type of information processors.
Oh, okay.
So I'd like to call Shigane-san to give a talk on that.
The next one? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So this is an application of the quantum fingerprint. Okay, please go ahead.
So I'll show my research. By using quantum fingerprints, we have created a physical device for information representation in high-dimensional spaces within quantum materials. Whenever we perform machine learning, input data is typically converted into sets or numbers or vectors. This is commonly referred to as a representation. It is a fundamental principle in information processing that as the dimensionality of these vectors increases, complex tasks become simpler to solve. Ideally, if we can represent data in a sufficiently high-dimensional space, any complex problem can be reduced to a simple linear separation problem. Instead of performing these expansions through algorithms on a computer, we used to achieve it by utilizing the inherent physical properties of materials of long being explored. This long proposed framework is known as reservoir computing. For example, waves on a water surface or wave phenomena in magnetic materials can serve as reservoirs for real-time signals. However, these classical physical systems have a certain limitation. They require time and energy to produce an output. To overcome this, we have demonstrated that quantum fingerprints in solids can be used to expand input information into high dimensions instantaneously and with minimum energy.
Wow, this is a wonderful work. Yes.
Yes, I'll show my results. When we feed data into a specific quantum material, the material reacts and generates signals arising from its quantum response. These signals, or quantum fingerprints, are read out through multiple terminals as a set of voltages. Because this physical response is nearly instantaneous, we can obtain this representation without waiting as we do with water waves. Then, by simply feeding this vector into a linear learner, a simple readout layer, we can perform a wide variety of machine learning tasks. As a demonstration, we applied this method to a handwritten digit recognition task. So this is a true level distribution obtained for the input image of digit 0. You can see a peak at the collector level, and this indicates that the quantum fingerprints of a material successfully transform the image into a representation highly suitable for image classification. And the matrix here is a confusion matrix for all input images, and the vertical axis shows the true levels, and the horizontal axis shows the predicted levels. You can see that the counts are aligned along the diagonal line, so this means we are able to classify the images from 0 to 9 correctly. So in this way, by utilizing quantum fingerprints, specifically quantum fingerprints in solids, we can successfully realize a device for energy-efficient representation of information. Thank you.
Yeah, so we
This
made
is
this
also
device.
wonderful.
Yeah, we made this
Yeah.
device. So in this device, so we have made the most of the very complicated phenomena, the quantum interference. It is much more complicated than the non-quantum wave interference. By making use of it, we can make the information expansion machine.
Of reservoir computing with linear readout.
Yeah,
And
it's a kind. Yeah,
this is a
similar.
really wonderful
Yeah.
technological solution, and quantum fingerprinting. This can revolutionize the way we communicate, we compare states and identify states and so on. So
Exactly.
this is really wonderful, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that.
Yeah. So could you?
Oh, okay. So now, Professor Tabata, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. It's my turn. Okay. So I'd like to.
Forward. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So today, I'd like to share our present status of our understanding, what is intelligence, and where does it come from. And this, where the keyword is fluctuation, yuragi in Japanese. So this project has been done by collaborating with the Professor Izuka Sensei's group and the Professor Seki, Yamahara, Dr. Ryao, Dr. Saruka, and the members of our groups. So as Professor Saitoh Sensei's group mentioned that, there is the important keywords and approaches for understanding the intelligence. And from now on, I'd like to focus on the yuragi fluctuation. And there are two yuragis. The one is the quantum fluctuation, and the other is the thermal fluctuation. So that is the topics we are interested in, because this thermal fluctuation, yuragi, is the important function for understanding the brain system. So the environmental generated fluctuation and also the self-organized fluctuation is also important for understanding. And to understand what is intelligence, so we set these three, for example, combination of the three elements. One is matter. Matter is, as in the beginning of this session, Professor Saitoh introduced us this planet and the apple, so followed by some of the general rules. And also the brain should be followed, for example, by such rules. And the energy is also very important, for example, the element and the information. And when we see from the point of the energy, so the computer is commonly compared with the brain. And this is a typical computing system, supercomputer, Fugaku, indeed is present. So it eliminates the ambiguously with sufficient input energy to realize the accurate and the robust and the first calculation with negligible small errors. That is realized solves the deterministic problem. That is the one way. In case of the brain, on the other hand, it plays the opposite manner. So they prefer to use such a fluctuation, a sort of the noise. And based on the such concept of the self-collision function and the probabilistic and stochastic resonance, that is important function for understanding the brain system, where the fluctuation, the yuragi, is a keyword, we think. And what is fluctuation yuragi? In general, noise is the typical feature of the fluctuation system. Therefore, commonly, we hate it. It is this non-welcome matters. We want to suppress, eliminate it as much as possible. But again, I say that in the system of our brain, we actively use such kinds of the noise yuragi system as a sort of the energy getting from the environment, which is one key word and key idea for how to realize low energy consumpting computing and information treatment as well as sensing. So thermal energy, one of the key. So I show you the one typical example. So left-hand side shows the noise intensity dependence of signal to noise ratio. So measured by the, for example, the paddlefish. Here I can see. And it shows the optimum condition for realizing at the sort of the noise intensity. Means that the noise works well for getting the good signal to noise ratio. And for understanding these phenomena, we use this simple equation that is called the Langevin equation. So the important point is that the energy value between the signal itself and noise is almost similar because we'd like to use the noise energy to enhance for decision or for the sensing some things. And so here is the explanation. When we get the very weak sine wave signal, but the intensity is lower than that of the detection limit, we cannot get any signals. With adding the additional noise, so still we cannot get any information, but in some cases, so we get it, some signal. And at the optimum noise level, we can accurately get the periodic information. It has meaning. But of course, for example, the heavy noise, for example, to detect anyhow. That is so we can summarize this picture, that is there is the optimum noise, and the noise works well for getting the low energy consumpting processing. So based on this concept, we have demonstrated that this image analysis. So you can see the two pictures. Left-hand side is the photo of the headquarters of SoftBank Corporation, former SoftBank, located in Shiodome. And the right hand is the building of the exhibition hall, our headquarters of department, Reppinkan in Japanese. And so the left-hand figure shows with increasing the noise intensity, the two, for example, the data treatment, the conventional convolutional neural network data treatment and quantum neural network treatment using the IBM-Q, quantum computer. So with increasing the noise intensity, the performance, sharpness of the image decrease. It is a common sense. But in case of the stochastic resonance treatment, it is surprisingly show that it shows some of the optimum condition. At the 0.5 noise intensity, it shows a good performances, and it must be noted that such a quality of the images is higher than that of the common, for example, the conventional or quantum neural network treatment in these conditions. That is very impressive us. We don't need any refrigerator or some huge energy powers. It's such a stochastic resonance, so approaches idea works well, which happen in in our brain systems. And when we transfer this concept to the real devices, so as you know, the present devices, we'd like to decrease the noise as low as small possible to realize the very huge signal-to-noise ratio. That's the common for the approaches. Therefore, we need to huge electric power to prevent from the error and some things. But in the brain system, the opposite way, so we use similar energy values, and the other noise comes from the environment. It is one of the concepts and hint to how to realize the brain system and understand the intelligence. So this is last, for example, the example, and when we set the realistic spin wave spin devices, that is the tunneling spin devices, which device can apply to these traveling salesman model problem, because there's such a spin energy minimum is equal to that of the cost minimum. That is the essence for developing the idea. So the Professor Hinton and Hopfield, so Nobel laureate in physics 2 years ago, that is the essence and the approaches. And we applied to this idea and they combined it with the noise. So the middle picture shows the variation of the noise, kinds of the noise. You can see the 5 patterns, and the black one shows no frequency. It's a frequency dependence of the noise intensity, and black line shows no dependence, means a white noise. And when we see the pink line, so the inverse, frequency inverse, that is so-called F分の1 noise. That is commonly, so it's a popular word. And the blue line and the violet line is the frequency cubes and the frequency square. But anyhow, so right hand shows the performances of such a processing, and the lower is better for energy consumption. And by adding the blue noise works well for the low energy, for example, calculating. And based on this concept, so we estimate that these stochastic resonance enhanced devices shows very low energy consumpting operations. Okay, so finally, I'd like to say that when we think the intelligence with a combination with the matter, energy, information, so the energy, because the thermal fluctuation is one of the keywords, I think. And due to the time limitation, I skip such physical properties fluctuation, such as spin glass. But anyhow, this matter also plays an important role for understanding and realizing the intelligence. Okay, that is the essence of my talk.
Wonderful talk. So I have a question. So when you say yuragi in Japanese, is that a slightly different sense from fluctuation?
I think the commonly equal.
Yeah?
Yeah, but the yuragi has a many meaning, I think. There's a physically, so fluctuation is a physical meaning, quantum and thermal fluctuation.
Right.
And also, sometimes yuragi has a more wide meaning in the mentality or something.
Yeah.
But I think today we'd like to focus on the physics.
More biology or inspired, also more context dependent.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, yeah, you have it.
Yeah, so does it play a role from the physics point of view in terms of the physics AI content? The yuragi, which maybe you broaden the definition of the yuragi into the, basically the yuragi is a kind of Japanese of the jet fluctuation, right? So,
but today's topics, I'd like to just focus on the thermal fluctuation. Yes.
Yeah, but even so, I think it could be a really great theme for Beyond AI from the University of Tokyo, because it could be some uniquely Japanese contribution to the physics of computation from the point of view of fluctuation or yuragi. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as the Saitoh Sensei group mentioned, that's the thermal and quantum yuragi fluctuation. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think this is a very important point which we share. Basically, so our result is that we found a very simple physics law to control the fluctuation in the neural network. Yeah. To control fluctuation is the essence of intelligence. It is our very fundamental result. So, but I think your method is a kind of to make use of the fluctuation to enhance the device operation. So do you think there is something common?
Yeah, I think that our field, something field is electrical engineering, more practical for the point of view. Yeah, but that's a common, for example.
Also, in stochastic resonance, I think it is very important to control the noise level.
Yes, exactly.
And nonlinear dynamical systems, they do actually have a kind of built-in way of optimizing the noise level.
Adjusting is very operating for the conditions. Adjusting is very, very important. Yeah.
So also, this is a project I think funded by SoftBank, and SoftBank is also a really important player in AI right now, like OpenAI and so on. But all these efforts as generative AI and trying to build AGI or ASI are based on this Turing machine type of, a very, where fluctuation plays very little role. But now you two are proposing completely different paradigm for computation. So what do you see as a roadmap? This is a general audience.
All right.
Okay, these are not math scientists. These are general audiences. So you should really make a tangible story. So Professor Saitoh or Professor Tabata, what is a roadmap from here in terms of tangible, practical applications for computation?
All right. So basically, this is the first result which I showed. So this is controlling the fluctuation by using the very simple law of physics, and without using any minimization, the function looks like intelligence appears automatically. So I think it is a very applicable to the physical intelligence. So using a robot. So it should be used in the open environment. So the classical AI is first we have to do the learning. After that, we can make use of it. So we are not like that. So we do the learning and do some tasks at the same time. So it cannot be separated. So this is a kind of this method is we found the same physics law which can be applied to both the learning and both the application. So these two phases cannot be separated here. So I think this method can be applied to the physical intelligence in this context.
As I answered, this kind of approach can be applied to the sensory information processing, also sensory motor information processing, and so on.
Yeah, and so on.
In physical AI, which is a really big trend right now in the world. So, and that's a really wonderful problem. And do you have any?
Yeah. And in the field of the computing system, so there are two major categories. The one is the Neumann type. That is the mainstream of the supercomputer. And the other is the non-Neumann type. And in the Neumann type, there are two ways. One is the quantum computing. The other is neuromorphic computing. So basically, our starting point is learning from the brain system. So those two major streams are not compete. For example, the coexistence, and they cover each other's. And because at this moment, we just use the Neumann type computing, and we need huge electrical energy. That's a serious problem. To solve such a serious problem, we'd like to, for example, introduce that.
So we have been talking about the physics of computation, but also this is a thermodynamics of information as well. Professor Tabata, I think you have been working on making more realistic, biologically realistic, biology-friendly systems on computation.
Exactly.
What do you think is the key features of the brain's computation power that we haven't yet tapped, in artificial intelligence systems like the von Neumann type computation? What are the missing key points?
So one of the important missing point is that how to adjust and the adaptive learning. So for solving the adaptive learning and the adaptive solving problem. Therefore, I think in some cases when we make some devices, it fixes only one problem. It is not nonsense. So we'd like to So practically, so the uniform system is very essential for the.
Interesting. So, we have been talking about physical AI, but another really important issue is agentic AI, how we can build agents. And probably this kind of technology and, theorizing has a lot to do with building a robust agent. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, so we have to think about very carefully about what is what is beyond current AI. So,
right.
Of course, the airplane was made as a kind of a mimic of the bird.
Yeah.
But maybe the direction is not same.
Right.
Maybe the inner flexibility birds are better than the artificial airplane, but the airplane can run, of course, fly much faster than
right.
that. So of course, the artificial AI we have now had a big advances beyond our brain. So, but of course, it's not exact mimic of our nature brain. So we have to use the both in the next stage. So I think our architecture is not same as the current AI. So, but by using both them, I mean this fracture-based scheme, fracture-based scheme, basically the current AI is a kind of in a sense, it is a fluctuation-free scheme. Of course, we can do the stochastic optimization method, but basically it's we did it we did it by reducing fluctuation. I mean the uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the direction is completely unrelated. So we have to use both.
I think this has been really wonderful. Physics of computation can be the next great step forward for AI. And also, as these two professors have been arguing, when you come to physical AI or agentic AI, we do need to have a realistic system incorporating fluctuation or hierarchy in a really efficient and practical way. So I think this has been a really very good session toward that direction. Now, it's time for concluding remarks. So, Professor Tabata, do you have any concluding remarks?
Okay, so at this moment, in my private, for example, the understanding is the hierarchy and fluctuation, one of the very important words and the phenomena to understand the intelligence. That is the message for me.
Yeah, for my part, I think I have been really enjoying this conversation, and I'm sure this research group is going really in a great direction. And, I hope all the best for you guys in the next 4 years. So, anyway, Professor Saitoh.
Yeah, so I think what the AI needs right now is universality. So if physics can give the more universality to AI, I think the AI can go beyond. Yeah, so it's a role of our field in the context of AI.
So I think in order to go beyond, we actually need to deep digging in the foundations of physics, right?
Yeah, so we have to seek to find what is the essential part of intelligence.
Wow,
what is the essential part of the AI?
Yeah.
It is a role of us, I think.
Oh, this has been great. So that's our session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tabata, Professor Mogi, and Professor Saitoh. Let us now move on to session 2. This session will feature presentations from the fields of AI and neuroscience. We are pleased to introduce Professor Kenichi Ohki, Professor Yuji Ikegaya, Professor Yoshiho Ikeuchi, and Project Professor Yukie Nagai. Dr. Ohki is a professor at the Graduate School of Medicine and the International Research Center for Neurointelligence, the University of Tokyo. Dr. Ikegaya is a professor at the Graduate School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, the University of Tokyo. Dr. Ikeuchi is a professor at the Institute of Industrial Science, the University of Tokyo. Dr. Nagai is a project professor at the International Research Center for Neurointelligence, the University of Tokyo. The theme of this session is the fusion of the brain and artificial intelligence toward the emergence of new intelligence. First, let us welcome Professor Ohki.
Okay, thank you very much, Fan, for kind introduction. So in this session, we would like to talk about brain and AI fusion. So, and in this session, we are talking about the four topics. We are trying to learning from brain for AI, and we are also trying to expanding brain with AI, and also we are trying to making AI with brain tissue, and also we are trying to understand the diverse intelligence. So probably everyone here see this screen almost every day. So, so this is the ChatGPT screen, and first I'd like to talk about where did the current AI come from. So the first idea came from the shape of the neurons in the brain. So this is the, for example, the left image is the Purkinje cell in the cerebrum drawn by Kahar, and the Kahar suggested the neuron doctrine. So he suggested that the nervous system is made up of individual discrete cells, and this is called a neuron doctrine. And he also suggested that the neuron consists of dendrites, a soma, and an axon. So these are dendrites, so they receive thousands of inputs from other neurons. And soma integrates their signals. And if the activity surpasses the threshold, then the soma produces the firing, and the firing propagates through the axons to the next cells. So the information flows from dendrites to soma and axons. So this has enabled us to consider the flow of information in the neural circuits. So, and these are the neural circuits in the retina and also the hippocampus drawn by Kahar. And based on these findings, about 17 years ago, Macaro and Pitt suggested that a neuronal network can compute logics. So these are simplified neuron suggested by Macaro and Pitts, and this is a soma, and this is a dendrite. So they receive many input from dendrites, and if the integrated activity surpasses the threshold, then they send outputs. And the signals are digital or none, and they suggest that any logic circuits can be represented by such neural circuits. For example, and this neural circuit represents the OR circuit, and this neural circuit represents the AND circuit, and this neural circuit represents the NAND circuit. So any logic circuit can be represented by this way. So the second hint came from our vision. So how does the brain perceive the world? So, and we see the world, outside the world, through the eyes. And behind the eye, we have retina. So neurons in the retina respond to a single point in the visual field. And the retinal cells send output to the thalamus and further send output to the primary visual cortex. So as I pointed out, that neurons in the retina respond to a single point. Then what the neurons in the primary visual cortex respond to? If you don't know the answer yet, so please think about it. So this question was answered by David Hubel and Thorsten Wiesel about 60 years ago, and they found what neurons in the primary visual cortex respond to.
And nothing
so
seemed
this
to
is
work.
a movie of their
by
experiment,
accident,
and
one
they
day,
projected
we were
visual
shining
stimulus using
small
this projector
spots,
to the screen,
either white
and this
spots
is
or black
Hubel,
spots
and this is
onto the
Wiesel.
screen. And we found
And they
the
draw a black dot
seemed to be
on a
working
glass
right,
slide,
but at
and
first
they
we couldn't
inserted
understand
this
until we
glass slide into the
found that
projector.
it was the process of
And
sweating
then you
the
can hear some sound, ba 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 ba. So this is the sound of the neurons. And they noticed that the neurons do not respond to this black spot, but rather respond to the edge of this slide. So they found that neurons in the primary visual cortex respond to a line with a particular orientation at a particular space. So, and they found that simple cells in the primary visual cortex respond to a line with a particular orientation at a particular space. So they are basically doing the feature extraction. And the other type of cells in the primary visual cortex is called the complex cells, and they generalize for the positioned. So in this way, they propose a hierarchical model of the primary visual cortex. So then, based on this finding, and Dr. Fukushima, and at that time NHK Basic Research Institute in Japan, proposed a pattern recognition neural network by the repetitions of simple cells and complex cells, and this is called the neocognitron. So in this neocognitron, so this is the simple cell layer and the complex cell layer. So this corresponds to the primary visual cortex V1, and again simple cell layer, complex cell layer. So this corresponds to the secondary visual cortex and the third visual cortex and the fourth visual cortex. And then he succeeded in recognizing the pattern of digit by this neocognitron. So this network was further developed by Jan LeCun and Jeff Hinton, and Jan LeCun developed the convolutional networks, and Jeff Hinton developed the deep learning. And so this is the architecture of the deep learning. So this is a convolution layer. Convolution layer is basically the same as the simple cell layer of the neocognitron. And the pooling layer, which is basically the same as the complex cell layer in the neocognitron. So, and again, the simple cell layer, complex cell layers, and the simple cell layer. So the basic architecture is basically the same as what Fukushima proposed many years ago. But at this time, this network has numerous parameters, 60 million parameters. So by using this kind of deep learning technique, and artificial intelligence surpassed the human, at least for the Go performance. So 10 years ago, the AlphaGo beaten the Korean Go champion, and probably you remember this news. So then the third idea came from the hippocampus and the association memory. So this figure shows the hippocampus architecture. And this is drawn by Cahal, and this is drawn by Laurent Dunot, and hippocampus has numerous recurrent connections. So what are recurrent connections? So these neurons send axons, and these axons come back to themselves and connect synapses. So these are called the recurrent connections. And based on these recurrent connections, about 50 years ago, David Ma proposed the theory of the hippocampus. So because of the existence of these recurrent networks, so he suggested that the recurrent connections is probably capable of completing a representation when the fraction of currently active cells is as low as 1/3. So what this means is if some pattern is memorized in this network, if only a part of the input is given to the network, then the whole picture will be recovered. So this is the idea of the association memory. So around the same time, Dr. Nakano in the University of Tokyo in Japan developed the first association network called Associator. And also after several years ago, Dr. Shunichi Murray in the University of Tokyo in Japan further refined the network and suggested Murray's association network based on the recurrent neural networks. And 5 years later, Hopfield proposed the same type of association network, actually exactly the same as Murray's one, and obtained a Nobel Prize in physics last year. So this association network is now used as a core component of the large language model such as ChatGPT, and it's called attention networks. So attention incorporates the information from the surrounding worlds, and then this is actually equivalent to the modern Hopfield network. So attention network is a core component of the transformer large language model, and now we are using this as a ChatGPT. So, last night, I asked this question to a ChatGPT. So I'd like to give a seminar tomorrow with the following title, From the Brain to AI. So what should I talk about? Then ChatGPT answered that I should talk about macro and bits and everything. So I prepared this slide without seeing this answer, but I thought that I should have asked this first to ChatGPT. So then what's next? So as previous session explained and suggested that fluctuation is very important in our brain. So our brain is always spontaneously active. And even without sensory input, the brain is always spontaneously active, and it's consuming almost 80% or 90% of its energy for the spontaneous activity. So what the spontaneous activity is doing? So this question was first addressed by Dr. Miriam Greenbaugh's group, and they found that the spontaneous activity patterns sometimes become very similar to the activity patterns evoked by the visual input, in this case, the vertical bars. So, and then if such spontaneous activity causes perception, then we will perceive, for example, in this case, the vertical bars. So then we will perceive hallucination, but we don't perceive. So how can we avoid this? So, and to address this question, we examined the spontaneous activity and also the visually evoked activity patterns in the lower visual areas and the higher visual areas of the marmosets. And we obtained the spontaneous activity patterns frame by frame, and also obtained the visually evoked activity patterns, and compared spontaneous activity patterns with the visually evoked activity patterns frame by frame. So then we found that in the lower visual areas, such as V1 and V2, spontaneous activity patterns sometimes become very similar to the visually evoked activity patterns. So consistent with previous macaque monkey works. So in the lower visual areas, spontaneous activity patterns or noise patterns are very similar to the sensory patterns. However, when we went to the higher visual areas, such as area V5 or V6, then the spontaneous activity patterns never become similar to the visually evoked activity patterns. So in the higher visual areas, spontaneous activity patterns are very different from the noise activity, from the visually evoked activity. So in summary, we found that in the lower visual areas, spontaneous activity patterns and noise and visually evoked pattern signals are similar to each other, but along the cortical hierarchy, they are more and more orthogonalized, and in the higher visual areas, they are almost orthogonal. So such orthogonalization may help dissociate the visual information from the spontaneous activity noise and avoid the hallucination. So then how about the noise? So we examined the same thing in the artificial neural networks. So we gave a random Gaussian noise to an input layer of the deep neural network and examined how signal and noise are processed in the deep neural network. So then what we found was totally opposite from the brain. So in the case of the brain, so this y-axis represents the similarity between the signal and noise. And in the case of the brain, in the input layer, signal and noise are similar. But in the output layer, signal and noise are almost orthogonal, so they are very different. So the similarity decreases. However, in the case of the AI, deep neural network, in the beginning, they are almost independent, but after passing through the many layers, signals and noise are getting more and more similar, and in the output layer, they are almost identical. So then it will become very difficult to dissociate signal from the noise. So we may be able to improve the deep neural networks or AI by introducing orthogonalization mechanisms similar to the cortical brain, similar to the cortical network, and make them more robust to the noise. So then the question is why the signal and noise became similar in the deep neural networks. So, and we think that this is because of this reason. So recently, Tommaso Poggio's group in MIT suggested that if the units are fully connected and the weights are learned by the backpropagation, then the signal similarity will be proportional to the weight similarity. So if the signals are similar, then the weights will be similar. So then if the weights means the connections are similar, then because of the common noise will be similar. Then the similarity in the signal will be proportional to the signal similarity in the noise. So this is inevitable if we assume fully connection and also the backpropagation. So we are trying to solve this problem by implementing the sparse connections and also modifying the learning rule, and we succeeded in suppressing the increase of similarity between the signal and noise. So this is the normal one and the modified one. So we achieved a 5 times improvement in the performance against adversarial attacks. So in this way, reducing the similarity between the signal and noise makes the AI more robust to the noise. So, and in this session, so I talked about learning from the brain and for AI, and in the next speaker, Dr. Ikegaya will talk about extending the brain with AI, and the third speaker, Dr. Ikeuchi, will talk about making AI with brain tissue, and the fourth speaker, Dr. Nagai, will talk about diverse intelligence. So the next speaker is Dr. Ikegaya, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Yuji Ikegaya at the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences, and I have been working participating in this institute by doing the project in this topic, so expanding brain function using AI. So this idea was originally rooted in these papers, which we published more than 10 years ago in Fujii. So we made new devices. That is the geomagnetic brain chips that can stimulate the neocortex of the rats, depending on the head direction of the rats, relative to the absolute orientation. I mean, the north and the south axis. And also, we made a spatial maze that cannot be solved without a geomagnetic sense. The result was amazing. So we observed actually rats were able to rapidly learn to perform this task within only 2 days, indicating the brain is so flexible and adaptive. So based on these observations, so we believe the brain has vast and unexplored potentials. In other words, the brain is like a reservoir of the latent possibility. So we would like to wanted to try to unlock its power with AI. So today, I'd like to introduce one of our successful stories. But before that, I'd like ask you one question. So can you distinguish figure skating jumps? So look at this video. What is this jump? Okay, this is double flip. Okay, the next one, so what is this? So this is double lot. Can you recognize it? No? So I have no idea too. So, but experts or sports commentators can do it. So this is very important differences. So, okay, let's consider what is happening here. So the both lay persons like me and experts watch the same video, but only experts perceive the fine details. So, okay, this is important. The raw visual information to the eyes is preserved in everyone's brains, at least during the early stage of visual processing in the brain. Okay, but only experts can differentiate the skating jumps, so reflecting a heightened awareness of their internal neural responses. So basically, we are not aware of our brain activity. So we wanted to ask what happens if we are feedbacked with our brain activity. So more specifically, we recorded the neuronal activity and decoded the neural information using AI, and then feedbacked the AI decoded the neural information to the brain. Okay, so to do this, we carried out a sound discrimination task. So in which a rat has to respond whether the language of a human voice is English or Spanish. So, do you understand what I mean? So this is a very simple task. So either English or Spanish is played over the speaker, the rat has to answer which language is played. Okay. So we prepare the 100 phrases of English and Spanish, and so two languages are paired, so that's the meaning. The phrase has the same meaning.
My husband broke my favorite dish.
Okay, this is English. Okay, next one is
Mi
Spanish.
marido rompe mi plato favorito.
Okay, not only meanings, but also sound quality is the same, because these voices were generated by a computer, the automatic voice generator. Okay, so this is the result. As shown here, so we repeated more than 10,000 trials, but correct rates were flat. It remained at the chance level of 15%, indicating rats cannot distinguish the English and the Spanish. But English and Spanish are different languages. The sound features or phonology must be different between them. So if we recorded the neuronal activity from the auditory cortex, primary auditory cortex, so we hypothesized that these neural responses still contain the sound feature of the English or Spanish. So we applied AI to analyze the neural response and found out actually so our deep learning can discriminate which languages the rat were listening to. So we feedbacked the AI predicted languages to the brain. So the result was really nice. So now the correct rate reached 80% within 5,000 trials. So this is the representative data in single rats. So we repeated the same experiment in the 15 rats. The correct rate was always significantly higher than 50% in all the rats tested here. Finally, so we removed AI feedback from these trained rats. And also, we prepared the new phrases of the English and the Spanish that the rat never heard during the training sessions. Okay, so that in this case, rat has to answer by themselves. Okay, so this must be a different task, but result was fantastic. The correct rate was still higher than 50% in all the rat tested here. So based on, okay, this means that once the rats were trained with AI, so the rats became to be able to distinguish the human voice, human languages. So these results, so we believe so the AI can unlock brain potentials. So more specifically, so what we did here is the AI mediated the bridge between two brain regions that were not internally connected. So this approach could provide future directions of the technological tools for brain function expander. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Ikegaya. And the next speaker is Professor Ikeuchi.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Yoshiho Ikeuchi. I'm going to talk about something called brain organoids. So you probably know human iPS cells, which can become many types of the cell, which is really good because, like for biologists, we can use them to create any type of cells in the body, including neurons, which is very difficult for us to get from human because it doesn't regenerate. So we cannot get human tissues normally. But now, thanks to iPS cells and development afterwards, we can create brain-like tissues, and we call them brain organoids. But we cannot really make brain yet. We can make parts like cerebral cortex organoid or hippocampal organoid or a thalamic organ, which are the which mimics the parts of the brain, not the entire part. But yet, it's very so useful, and it's been expected to be used in many cases, including like many drug development and testing toxicology with them, because they are better models of human than like other things, including like mouse and rodents for this type of applications. And this is an example of the cross-section of the organoids. You can see many different colors and different patterns that maybe I can use this. Oh, here. And then that shows the sort of organization of the cells. And that really mimics what happens in our developmental brain. And they can organize structure, layers, and that that happens without our direction, meaning the cells have the potential, the ability to create brain-like tissue. That really gives us a sense of they have capability or potential to become something potentially intelligent later. But it's not really the case yet. It's not intelligent at all, actually. And there are many reasons. But for example, like human brain is so huge. And as I told you before, there are many different parts that are coordinately work together to create higher order functions. But for the brain organoid, which is very small, and also it mimics just the local parts of the brain, which doesn't really work as is by itself. So we want to, provide some sort of, like technical advance and solution to it. So what we've been doing here is create brain organoids first, and then we create connected tissues to mimic sort of macroscopic, mesoscopic circuitry between different regions. And then that we call connectoids. And then we're making more like many organoids that are connected within the tissues. And then that really tells us that by connecting different the many organoids, they can be more active and complex. And then with the collaboration in a group in Vienna, they showed that the mutation of the gene called RE1B, which disrupts the formation of the left and right hemisphere of the cerebral cortex, and that can be mimicked by our system, which is connectoid. And also, we've been using this model to make an artificial connection between the biological tissue, which is the brain organoid, and also the electrical component, like brain-like spiking neural network, and we can communicate. We can make them communicate in real time, which is a good platform for us to make them sort of learn together in the later stage. And we also been working on how to make them functional. That's been the sort of holy grail for the neuroscience for a long time, because we want to really understand the intelligence, and for that, it's very good to create it if we can. But that's been very difficult. And to be honest, sometimes, we tried many different tasks with the organoids, and sometimes they look a little bit like intelligent. Maybe like our lab mates might not agree, but it's not really consistent at all. So we really want to change to change that situation and learn how we can achieve it. So we've been trying many different things. One is to create a bigger network. For example, we can create like 2 or 3 or 4 organoids that in loop members, and we can see a gradual increase of the activity, and also the network size, the module, like hubs, or if you do network analysis, you could see that you can see more those indexes increase, as you can see here. That really means that by just connecting organoids, that you could get a more complex network that's more, like ready for function in the future. And then you can do a lot of different things, but including like trying to sort of teach patterns. I don't know exactly where teaching it, or exactly it's really working that well, But we can see that if we give like different one pattern, for example, here we stimulate ABC in circle, and then you could see that they can replay or follow the same pattern after stopping the stimulation. That really means that they can sort of respond to what we give in the dish. So that's really a good potential that they show. But we have sort of struggle here because it doesn't really look intelligent yet. And we've been thinking why that is. And then one of the things that we have to mention is that the organoids is not just simple. They also do not have like sensory inputs like we have. For example, here it's a figure from somebody's paper, and shows the development of our brain and the visual system. So we open our eyes quite early on when we're born. And then, so of course the visual circuit network is there and it's already built. But as we get the sensory input from the eyes, gradually the circuit is refined, and we could gain function more after birth by stimulation-induced circuit refinement. Perhaps we do need that before trying to do something hard. So, sorry, yes. And then so that's what we learned. So we thought, okay, we decided, okay, maybe we should try to understand what they need to be able to gain some sort of function. So here what we tried is very simple task. Here we just wanted to make it very simple, and we just gave two different stimulation. We just gave them by electrical pulses, and then we recorded their response. That's it. And then we recorded some output part, and then we just asked the very simple AI machine learning algorithm to say, okay, can you distinguish it? And we first purposefully chose two different stimulation that gives very similar output to make it very low score. As you can see here, around here, it's just like a slow score is about 0.5, which means that the machine learning classifier cannot distinguish two stimulations. And we wanted to ask, okay, what's the minimum requirement for these tissues to gain function from there on? So the long story short, the conclusion for us, for this case, was that we need to create a network of organoids with minimum of 3, which is in the red lines, in two different classifiers here and here. Hope you can see that. Okay, and then so we had to stimulate very long time, like every day for 2 weeks, which is, of course, for the brain, it's not too long. For us, very long, but yeah, but it's 2 weeks. And then it was interesting for us that it didn't really require feedback or anything for that. That really means that it's not really like sort of reward-driven learning or anything. It's more about the intrinsic mechanism for the circuit to acquire signal separation function that really tells us like what they really need to prime to be able to function later. Oh, okay, sorry, I forgot to show you the example here. So the top part shows the output before the 2-week stimulation, but the bottom shows the two different stimulation gives very different response after 2-week continuous stimulation. As you can see, it's very different. And then the interesting part is the spontaneous network activity also changed. That really means the network is refined after the input stimulation. Yeah, so as you can see, the top, it responds quite similar, but then the after 2-week stimulation, they gain like a larger network size, and also they also gain directionality, meaning that the activity always happens from the stimulated part to the output part. So that's an interesting thing. Now here, this is a summary. You can see that we kind of concluded that having network structure is very important, but also the giving persistent input is very important for them to unlock their potential to functionalize their network. So now that we know that we can create more network, and it seems like more is better. So we're creating bigger network size like this, and it's very interesting. The spontaneous activity by itself is very interesting. As you can see, the red part shows the activity in the planar electrode array, and you can see that the sort of, in our mind, may be looking kind of a bit more similar to what Ohki sensei showed about the spontaneous activity of the brain, and we're using this to test more functional assays with this. And then so that's the main part, and I want to conclude with this more perspective. So we want to use this to understand how the neuron self-assembly to form functional circuits, and that's been we're only starting very little bit, but it's very exciting for us to be able to have a sense of we can manipulate internal circuitry within the organoids. And then perhaps we could build something more functional, maybe towards biocomputing systems. For that, we, together with SoftBank, we published this white paper titled Brain Processing Unit. And that's, if you have time, you please look at it online. And then also importantly, it can be used for more personalized care or psychiatric diseases, because we can maybe understand the signature of characteristic of person or psychiatric problems. And for that, together with it, we have ongoing project, including a cell pattern for medical application, which is done together with Yamaguchi sensei, who's in the audience. Also the psychiatric disease modeling also. And it's been very interesting and fun for us to have such an interdisciplinary collaboration within the Beyond AI Institute, and I really feel this is the great asset of this institute that has been built, and I hope it's going to continue for more. And then I would like to thank people. Mainly the work I showed was done by Angela and Tomoyo, who are in the audience, and then all the other people. And I also wanted to list many people who we work with from SoftBank. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ikeuchi. And the next speaker is Professor Nagai from IRCN.
Thank you very much. So my talk is about the neurodiversity and AI. Within the Beyond AI Institute, I had been leading the project which integrating the AI with the developmental disorders. The aim was that they're understanding their neurodiverse, their cognitive functions, we can design more accurate or more better the AI technologies. So I'd like to share our ideas, what the neurodiversity can tell us about the new design of the AI. I hope that many of you know that the term, the neurodiversity, it was originally coined as a term suggesting that there are different cognitive styles can be regarded as a natural, diverse, or the variations of their cognitive or the brain functions, rather than the disorders. For example, their autism or ADHD had been traditionally considered as a developmental disorders, but their cognitive style have the different and also even the creative thinking and also the behaviors, which can be sometimes a benefit for our societies. In recent years, many companies are also focusing on that diversity, such as neurodiverse intelligence has a great benefit in their communities. For example, their big AI and also the IT companies have been employing the person with the neurodiverse characteristics. And myself also be involved in the neurodiverse project, which is organized by the professor in the Keio University. And we have been organized several workshops and also the exhibitions in which we share and our insight about the neurosciences and also the AI technologies, and we provide the technologies which help us to better understand the challenges in the neurodiverse populations. But still, the open question is, how do neurodiverse intelligence emerges? We know that there are several persons often show some difficulties in their social abilities or cognitive capabilities. We can see such different behaviors or different cognitive style. But what neural mechanism really generates such a difference is still an open question. Then we have looked at the ideas from the computational neurosciences. The computational neuroscientists have been suggesting that the brain works as a predictive machine, and then as a variation of this predictive processing, we can understand the underlying neural mechanism of the neurodiversity. Here, the key idea of the predictive processing is that the brain makes a prediction about the world. And then it always tries to minimize a prediction error, which is the discrepancy between the top-down prediction and bottom-up sensory signal. Our brain has an internal model about the world, and then this internal model makes the predictions about our sensory signals. And if it detects some discrepancy or errors between the top-down prediction and the bottom sensory signal, the brain updates the internal model or acts on the environment to change the world, which also minimize the prediction error. And interestingly, these ideas can be extended to explain their individual diversity by integrating the idea of the Bayesian inference. Usually the top-down predictions and the bottom-up sensory signal have the precision, how certain the signals are. And based on these precisions, these two signals are integrated. If the prediction is more reliable, then we rely on this top-down prediction. For example, if we don't have enough knowledge about the world, then we need to rely on the incoming sensory signal. And based on this idea, we have been hypothesizing that the variation can explain such a neurodiverse intelligence as well. If the brain can integrate well the top-down prediction and the bottom-up sensory signal in a balanced manner, then the brain can adaptively adjust their predictions and also their reliance on the predictions depending on the environment. However, if the brain has a too strong reliance on the top-down prediction or too strong reliance on the sensory signal, then the brain, the cognitive style, is too much biased to its own knowledge or the new sensory signal. In that case, the brain has some difficulties in adapting to the new situations. So based on this hypothesis, we have conducted two studies. One looked at the human children to see how diverse intelligence really emerged in their cognitive behaviors. And the second study, I will show you the robotics study, which also demonstrates a diverse intelligence. In order to assess the prediction ability in children, we designed a completion drawing task. In this task, on the tablet, the child can see a part of the figure, and they were asked to draw whatever they want. Of course, we expected that the children, especially the older children, would add the missing parts. For example, for the contour of the face, he did the scribbling, but if you are asked the same task, then you will add the inner features of the face. So by assessing their prediction abilities and also the motivation to minimize the prediction error, we can evaluate how clear internal model the children already have and whether they can utilize their internal model to make predictions. And this boy is actually a very creative boy. You see that the features of the face were scrambled. Again, the features of the house, like doors and windows, are scrambled. So it was not so easy to make a house, but he was so creative. And now you see that he can now making the kind of apartment, 2 stories of the house, and he even added the door on the ground floor. We are so surprised to see that he knows how the house should look like, and the door should be on the ground floor to enter the apartment. And by analyzing this drawing behavior, we could observe both the developmental change and also the individual diversity. We have quantitatively assessed the quality of the drawing. I skipped the details, but you can see nice the two-dimensional the developmental perspective. For example, in the bottom left corner, you can see many scribbling patterns, which were mainly generated by the younger children, like 27 months old or 41 months old. But if you go to the top right corner, you can see more completion patterns, the children could add the missing parts, for example, the inner features of the face or the contour of the car and house and so on. It's mainly from the older children. Interestingly, we could also observe the individual diversity. For example, on the left side, you can see this drawing. This child mainly just followed the existing line. He or she had a very strong biases to the incoming sensory signal. He could not well utilize the internal model about the face or house. Of course, this child should be able to recognize house or face, but he could not utilize the prediction ability well. In contrast, you can see on the bottom right corner, this child just drew what he wanted to do while somehow ignoring the incoming sensory signal. Even when we presented like inner features of the face or inner features of car, this child just ignored what is already shown on the tablet, but he always just drew like a triangle, square, and so on and so on. We thought from this result that the individual diversity might be explained by the strong biases to the top-down prediction or strong biases at bottom-up sensory signal. Then we designed the robot experiment to verify our hypothesis. First, let me show the result of the robot experiment. We compared the normal prediction robot and the hypoplier prediction robot on the right side. You see that the normal prediction robot can nicely generate the completion drawing, whereas the hypoplier robot made the scribbling patterns like in younger children. This is a neural network model we utilized for this robot experiment. This is relatively simpler, recurrent type of neural network model. One important idea is to introduce the Bayesian inference module, which can manipulate the biases between the top-down prediction and bottom sensory signal. And then in this experiment, we intentionally manipulated the precision of the top-down predictive signal or the bottom-up sensory signal to see how the varieties of the drawing patterns can be generated. Here is a result. On the bottom left corner, you can see the scribbling patterns, which were mainly generated by the low precision of the sensory and predictive signal, whereas the completion was observed with the higher precision for both the sensory and the predictions. And similarly to the child development, child experiment, we could also observe like a free drawing, which is often also understood as a misinterpretation of the intended drawing, or the tracing patterns can be also observed, which was also happened in the child behaviors. So from this result, we summarize that the neurodiversity can be the new challenges for the AI researchers to address, and then the neurodiverse intelligence can provide us the new ideas for the design of the new forms of the intelligence. Developing the disorder is not just the disorders, but the diversity should be the important role, playing the important role in the next generation of the AI, especially as we humans also have the neurodivergent intelligences. So I hope that this will bring you the new ideas or new hint to design the new types of intelligence. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you very much, Professor Nagai. So in this session, we talked about four different approaches toward the fusion of the brain and artificial intelligence. So unfortunately, the time is running up. So we would like to accept the questions at the time of the panel discussion. So if you have questions, please hold them until the panel discussion. So we'd like to close this session. Thank you very much.
Professor Ohki, Professor Ikegaya, Professor Ikeuchi, and Project Professor Nagai, thank you very much for your inspiring presentations. Let us now move on to the third session. This session will feature presentations from the fields of society and AI. Please welcome Associate Professor Hisano as the session moderator, along with all the speakers. Dr. Hisano is an associate professor at the Interfaculty Initiative in Information Studies and the Graduate School of Interdisciplinary Information Studies, the University of Tokyo. Dr. E is a professor at the Department of Philosophy, Hanyang University. Dr. Spoden is a principal researcher at the German Institute for Japanese Studies. Dr. Itatsu is a professor at the Interfaculty Initiative in Information Studies and the Graduate School of Interdisciplinary Information Studies, the University of Tokyo. The theme of this session is AI and Society, Imagination and Responsibility for the Future.
Okay, thank you. Is it on? Okay. Thank you for the introduction. And hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the panel AI and Society, Imagination and Responsibility for the Future. I think our session will be quite different from the earlier two panels, but I think it's all kind of relevant to the earlier sessions as well as other research on AI. So this panel explores how AI shapes human life and society and how we might imagine alternative futures while taking responsibility for ethical, social, and cultural consequences of these technologies. And we are joined today by three scholars whose work speaks directly to these questions, each from a different disciplinary and institutional perspective. So our panelists have been already introduced, so I will omit the introduction, but just briefly to give you some background, Professor E holds a degree in physics from Seoul National University and a PhD in philosophy of science from the London School of Economics. So he has expertise both in physics, natural science, and also philosophy. So it's a good mix for this discussion as well. And Dr. Spoden is a principal researcher at the German Institute for Japanese Studies in Tokyo, and her expertise lies in science and technology studies, medical anthropology, and bioethics. And Professor Itatsu, a good colleague of mine at University of Tokyo, is also a founding member and a former director of the BI Global Forum, our research initiative. And she's a social and cultural historian whose recent work examines the socio-political impacts of AI. So before we begin our panel discussion, I would like to briefly introduce activities and achievements of our research team called BAI Global Forum. You see the logo on your left side, upper left side. Over the past 6 years, to give you some context for our later discussions. So the BAI Global Forum was founded with a clear aim to think about AI not only as a technical system, but as a social, political, and cultural force. From the beginning, we were motivated by a simple but pressing question: what does it mean to live with AI as part of our social infrastructure, not as a tool we occasionally use, but as something that increasingly shapes decision-making, knowledge production, and everyday life for all of us. And AI, in this sense, is not just a technology, but it is something that reorganizes our life, how power is exercised, how responsibility is distributed, and how futures are imagined. So BAI, our research team, was created as a space or intellectual space to think critically about these transformations and technologies before they become fully normalized or taken for granted. And our ultimate goal is to reconceptualize ethics and an inclusive society in the age of AI, as you see on the center on the screen. So rather than treating ethics as a checklist or a set of abstract principles applied after technologies are built, we approach ethics as something that must be embedded in social structures, institutional arrangements, and design processes themselves. And to do this, we have 3 pillars you see on the screen. We analyze AI and society through intersectional perspectives, paying attention to how gender, race, disability, nationality, and other axes of difference shape both technological development and its consequences. At the same time, we question modern institutions and value systems that have often prioritized market efficiency and unilateral technological progress, sometimes at the expense of social justice, care, and accountability. So our aim is to contribute to designing AI systems that support diverse forms of life in a more equitable way. And the B in BAI Global Forum, the name of our team, captures this orientation. It signals our interest in thinking before AI, behind AI, and beyond AI. That is, in the historical trajectories, political economies, and social structures that condition contemporary technologies. So by asking what precedes AI or before AI, what interests and assumptions are embedded within AI or behind AI, and what social relations sustain this technology, we aim to understand society not simply with AI, but also beyond AI. So in this sense, BAI is not about resisting or critiquing technology, but about widening the horizon of how technology can be understood and governed. And over the past 6 years, BAI has worked across disciplines, institutions, and national contexts to examine AI's implications for society, from governance and labor to ethics, culture, and everyday life. And our activities have included, for example, international comparative research on AI, as you see on your right, studies of biases in large language models, and collaborative projects that bring together humanities scholars, social scientists, and technologists and engineers. And one example is a project on AI and art with French research institution CNRS, which explored how AI technologies transform creativity, authorship, and cultural value. And another project is a project called Cross-Cultural Approaches to Desirable AI, conducted with universities in Europe, including University of Bonn, University of Cambridge, and the University of Applied Sciences Europe, which examined how ideas of desirable or responsible AI differ across social and cultural contexts. Lastly, our graduate student research assistants have also played a crucial role in organizing interdisciplinary seminars, helping to sustain conversations that cross both disciplinary and national boundaries. Also, outreach and education have been another core part of BAI's work. We have organized numerous international symposia and workshops, participated in global forums such as AI House Davos and APEC meetings, and developed undergraduate courses that encourage students to think critically about AI, society, and ethics. And these educational activities are especially important for us because they allow critical perspectives on AI to circulate beyond the special research communities and to engage students at earlier stages. And through these initiatives, outreach, education, collaboration, we have built a global network connecting over 50 institutions worldwide, including North America, Asia, Australia, Europe, and Africa. And our research outcomes have appeared in multiple international journals and also edited volume called Understanding AI in Society, How Technologies Exert Power, which was published in Japanese, published by the University of Tokyo Press in 2023. And our work has been recognized by key academic and professional communities. One example is the AIRC Award from the Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence, awarded to our project on cross-cultural approaches to desirable AI, which I mentioned earlier. And one particular important contribution we think of our work has been helping to consolidate what is now often referred to as critical AI studies. This is a research field or kind of research approach to AI that examines how AI reshapes social values, culture, and forms of knowledge by interrogating the social arrangements and value systems embedded in this technology. And here, being critical or hihan, teki or hihan in Japanese about AI does not simply mean being skeptical or oppositional. It can also mean being attentive to context, power, and history, and being willing to imagine alternative ways of developing and governing AI. So a defining feature of this approach is the integration of critical interpretive methods from the humanities and social sciences with intersectional, multi-layered social analysis, directly linked to concrete issues of AI design and development. So rather than asking only how AI works or how it should be regulated, critical AI studies asks questions such as whose values are encoded in AI systems and what kind of existing social values are embedded, or whose interests are prioritized and whose voices are marginalized or excluded. And BAI has contributed to institutionalizing this field by creating sustained spaces where researchers and practitioners engaged in AI development and social implementation can collaborate on equal basis with scholars in the humanities and social sciences. Now, looking ahead in the future, we hope that these efforts help move critical approaches to AI beyond isolated or short-term projects, supporting critical AI studies as a durable and globally connected field. And there is particular significance in advancing this work from the geopolitical and cultural context of East Asia. While AI development has long been dominated by the global north, AI innovation and competition are intensifying across Asia today, as you all know. Yet, critical research on AI remains largely centered in Western institutions. So by engaging this field from East Asia, we aim to relativize these asymmetries, respond critically to power relations reproduced through technology, and imagine alternative forms of technological and institutional design. With that context in mind, I would now like to invite our panelists to reflect on how imagination and responsibility can and should shape the future relationship between AI and society, or AI and human being, with a particular focus on this critical AI studies or critical approaches to AI. So enough from me. All of your work and expertise are crucial to this emerging field of study on AI, and the diversity of your work demonstrate the richness of these approaches to AI technology or relations between AI and society. So in your brief self-introduction, could you explain how your work engages with critical AI studies or critical approaches to AI more generally, and what being critical means in your own research practice? So shall we start with Syria? Let me change the slides.
Yeah, I just learned I'm the only one who has slides, but yeah, so my name is Celia Spruden. I'm a principal researcher at the DIJ, as Aisan already mentioned, and again, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here today. On this first slide, you see an avatar robot called Orihime, and next to it, a tablet saying, "This robot is not AI." And this is very important in this context because this robot is placed on a table in a cafe here in Tokyo. And in this cafe, people who have difficulties leaving their homes, many of them because of disabilities, work remotely through the robot and serve the guests in the cafe. So it's important to tell the guests that they are not talking with an AI robot, but with a real person behind it. And so this brings me to my current research project, which is exactly about this Orihime robot. It's a project about avatar technologies for an inclusive society, which I conduct together with Adisa Ima here from Tokyo University. And the main research question is what opportunities and risks do avatar robots present to society in general and to vulnerable populations such as people with disabilities and illness in particular, and whether these technologies offer new opportunities for social inclusiveness or contain new risks of exclusion. So, and for me, critical AI or technology studies more in general means recognizing that technologies are never neutral. They are always embedded and shaped by specific historical, social, cultural, economic, and political contexts, and they actively reshape those contexts in return. So, and therefore it's crucial to reveal the situatedness of technologies. And this means to ask how, how the development and implementation of technologies is embedded in and shaped by certain contexts. So situatedness means to understand technologies as fundamentally embedded in rather than separated from their context. And for the historical situatedness, this means to reveal how current technologies carry forward legacies of earlier technologies, practices, and power relations. For social and cultural context, this means to ask how technology development reflects particular cultural values, social norms, and worldviews, as Aisan already said, mostly Western or corporate or technocratic ones, that shape what problems get addressed and how. And for the economic situatedness, this means how technologies emerge from or reinforce specific economic structures, and in the political context, how AI technologies are shaped by and shape governance, regulation, and political power. This means that the development of certain technologies is not inevitable, but a product of specific choices, interests, and conditions that could have been or could still be different. This also means that there is a bidirectional influence, and a critical approach examines both directions of this relationship, asking how technologies emerge from and reconfigure social relations. So examining power structures and the social impact of technologies means to ask who benefits from these technologies and how do certain technologies reinforce or challenge existing inequalities. And in my opinion, it's very important to question assumptions and to reflect about key concepts we use in our work. So whose perspective shape how technologies are designed? What are the underlying concepts in tackling certain problems with technologies? And what are the consequences of choosing certain concepts or models and not others? And to give you an example from my own research, so whether we adopt a medical model of disability that sees disability as an individual deficit to be fixed, versus a social model of disability where disability is seen as created by social barriers and design choices, has profound implications for how technologies are developed. So in a medical model, technologies focus on correcting or normalizing disabled people, whereas in a social model, technologies focus on removing barriers and enabling participation. So in this conceptual work matters because the frameworks we use shape what problems we see, what solutions we imagine, and whose perspectives count.
Okay, thank you very much. So Professor Ii?
Yeah, thank you. Before I give my academic background and research, I would like to thank and mention that how grateful I am to be invited in this wonderful conference. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here and learn a lot from the earlier discussions on physics and neuroscience and its connection with AI. And it's perhaps I can relate to many of these issues because of my mixed background. I have this physics and philosophy background, and I'm now teaching AI ethics at the Department of Artificial Intelligence at Hanyang University, and I'm very kind of enjoying this kind of interdisciplinary environment. I want to mention about this critical AI studies some kind of linguistic and conceptual issues. I was amused by when you mentioned this Japanese word critique has a kind of implication of criticizing and say bad thing about the following issues. And we have a similar problem with Korean. When you say critique in Korean, which is 비판, people tend to think that it's saying bad thing about the following topic. But if you look at the Kantian critique of pure reason, that doesn't mean that Kant actually criticized pure reason as something which we have to repel. It's just critically evaluate, examine the kind of range and the power of a pure reason and try to build up that kind of evaluation, the better understanding and the better future of pure reason in the modern world. I think we should take the same attitude to the AI ethics in the critical AI studies, meaning that if you look at the origin of ethics, it comes from the Greek word ethos. And the difference between the Greek understanding of ethos and our current, especially Korean or even Japanese understanding of ethics, we call yuli in Korean, is the diversity, of course, limited diversity and the constructive nature of ethics. When you go back to Greek period, ethos means some normative social character. So it has some normative aspect. But what you have to remember is there is a diversity among the Greek the cities, states. For instance, Spartan as ethos is quite different from the Athens ethos. For instance, obliging to the state authority was a Spartan ethos because Sparta was almost a military dictatorship. But in the case of Athens, you have more emphasis on the ethos of free discussion and the rational choice. But if you look at the ethos in general, there is a common ethos shared by all the Greek civil states, like courage and moderation, for instance. So I think we should look at the AI ethics not in terms of, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do it, like this, disallowing or forbidding certain aspect of AI development. We should look at AI ethics in a more constructive way. For instance, Greek tried to find out what is the better ethos, what is the futuristic ethos they have to keep in mind when they have to collaborate against the Persian invasion into Greek peninsula. So the AI has a great potential as well as pitfalls and the dangers. And in the case of AI ethics, we should follow the spirit of ethos in Greek times and try to find what is ethically valuable and what is the better way of realizing AI potential in our current society. I will just end my observation from my small episode. When I look at the word future in the Oxford English Dictionary, I found that in 17th century, future was briefly used as a verb. So you can actually use future in 17th century as a verb. I don't know what exactly that brief usage of future as a verb happened. But my guess is in those modern times, Westerners are very confident that they could make better future. I mean, even better than the antiquity they always admired in the Renaissance period. So they have this very active attitude toward the future. That's why they could use future as a verb. I think we should take the similar attitude toward the AI, which is a really great potential, but also has some dangers as well. So we have to make our AI future in a more constructive way as a verb, and that's the critical AI studies should go for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Ito-san?
Thank you. It's a real great pleasure to be here. I'm happy to contribute some of my thoughts here. My own interest, I'm a historian by training, and my own interest started with understanding how technology can impact marginalized populations in our society, both to include them by using technology, how can we include people, and also how can we exclude them. Marginalized populations can also use technology to use it as a force to integrate themselves, or maybe to fight the authoritative or authorities so that they can gain more power. So this is where I started with AI, and I've kind of been evolving ever since. The geopolitical situation that we find ourselves in now, I think, is really interesting. There's so much research coming out of North America, China, Europe, but I think there's probably much more research that needs to be done about our perceptions of AI around the world, not just in East Asia and South Asia, but also in Africa, and because our perceptions actually have a huge impact on how we actually want our AI systems to be utilized in our respective societies. So with that in mind, I've been thinking about what is actually sustainable AI? And I don't necessarily mean it just in terms of environmentally sustainable, which of course is very important, but also how is it politically sustainable? Like how can AI be, or how can we create a politically sustainable AI or culturally sustainable AI? These are things that I think are also important questions to ask. So given these kinds of research interests, I'll just end with one more little anecdote about my educational program on AI and social justice. In this project, one of the key things that we do is to think about virtual survivors. So World War II survivors are shrinking in population, and we want to make sure that the memories live on. And so some of the museums around the world, including the Holocaust Museum and the Historical Museum in Hiroshima, for example, they have virtual survivors who will answer the visitors' questions based on the kind of restricted language models that they have. The project that we do in my class is that students team up and they perform the role of either philosopher or sociologist or anthropologist or ethicist or educator, maybe Holocaust survivor families, Holocaust survivors themselves, and they basically have a discussion about what is the best way to use this kind of technology. And so the reason why I do this is it's precisely because I want to instill in the students a kind of sense of what critical AI studies might look like. And I think in this case, it's very much about a co-creation of the best kind of use based on everybody's input, not just the people who created the technology, not just the people who are governing this technology, but other people who are also involved. So I'll stop there, but that kind of is what critical AI studies means to me.
Thank you very much. I think all of your introduction and your statements already give us a kind of sense of how diverse but also interconnected these approaches to AI are. So maybe building on Professor Itatsu's point about sustainable AI, politically, culturally, not only environmentally sustainable, and also your teaching experience, I want to shift a question, or maybe slightly related, about questions of funding, agency, and power. So many of these issues you've raised connect directly to who sets the agenda for AI research in the first place, which including funding, money is important for research, but also who sets this research question. So how do funding structures, institutional priorities, or national policy agendas even shape what kinds of questions can or cannot be asked, and how AI is developed, and also how the technology is implemented in society. So could we start with Professor Itatsu this time?
Yes, thank you. So funding is very important. And it's a little bit bittersweet that this is one of our last presentations, I suppose, as BAI, but I want to talk more about the legacy of BAI. So funding schemes clearly steer the direction of innovation, and I think if critical perspectives, if one of the questions is, can critical perspectives be part of policy, I think that's a question that actually includes a lot of tension. And the reason why there's tension embedded in it is because somehow we think that maybe critical perspectives and innovation, or critical perspectives and policy-driven funding cannot be in the same sentence. And I think that requires some introspection. Maybe one kind of easy thing I might say as an example is I'm going to pick a little bit on deepfake technology now. I don't have any problems with deepfake technology per se. I think there's probably a lot of really important ways to use deepfake technology for social good, but if we look at the internet and how it's being used by the general consumer or the general public, 90 to 95% of deepfake images are pornographic in nature. 98% of deepfake videos that are just circulating around in the internet are pornographic, and 99% of them target women. So if we think about this in terms of how general consumers use technology to harm people, 98% of the time, I think that's a discussion that we actually need to have. But this discussion has not happened. It's still, widely used, and it seems to be getting more popular. So I don't understand why this conversation does not end up in the same conversation as how we use autonomous weapons. It's definitely a weaponized tool against women, or it's a gender-based violence tool for that. So that speaks to the funding and the kind of power that certain people have in disseminating such technology to the general public. It doesn't have to be to the general public. That's a choice that people made. And while they might say benignly, oh, well, we didn't know this would be the case, it's been a few years now since we've been seeing this phenomena. There's clearly a time that we need to start thinking about what is good use or what is absolutely bad use of AI technology. So I think there's funding, agency, and power embedded in this one particular example, and I just wanted to throw that out as something that you can maybe take home and think about as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Spalding?
Yes, and I think also critical studies of AI or technology can also be beneficial should be part of every research project to reflect about like their own assumptions, their own impact of what is developed, and I think in this regard it also helps to foster acceptance in society, because in the end it always like the technology, when it's implemented in society, will also have an influence on society, and there are critical voices in society which should be integrated in the thinking about what is developed from the start, I think. And so if we really take this serious and we start engaging and communicating with society from the start, I think this is also important to build trust.
Thank you. Professor Yi?
On this topic, I want to start with two obvious observations. First one is this: AI development, R&D, requires a lot of money. And that a lot of money has to come from somewhere, in many cases investment, who wants to have a return on their investment. So it's obvious that AI development, the direction and contents of AI will depend on this funding, because those people who have a lot of money, who actually funded this project, has a special agenda, especially in a quick return in many cases. And even in the long term, they have some certain commercial interest, which interfere with some of the developmental aspect of AI technology. One might say, oh, but that's the case which we can go over, because after all, AI technology has some fixed future, because the technology always strive for the efficiency and optimization. So maybe in the short run, this funding actually affect the contents of AI technology. But in the long run, we are going to arrive at the AGI or some wonderful technology which doesn't actually reflect this funding structure. I strongly disagree. We have many cases in Silicon Valley where this top-level AI architecture and the technology are hotly debated and developed. We have many cases where funding actually affect quite dramatically the direction and the contents of AI technology. For instance, there was a very famous cases of Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was fired in 2024 by the directors of OpenAI for the negligence of a certain ethical principle, which was actually prompted the establishment of OpenAI as a non-profit organization in the first place. But then he was repositioned as a CEO because many employees of OpenAI was threatening the board of directors that if they did not take him back as a CEO position, they all moved to the Microsoft. The reason behind this employees demonstration was OpenAI at that time was in the nearer to their IPO. So the employees was very concerned about the possibility that their stock prices would go down. And the first thing the Sam Altman, when he got back to OpenAI, was disband the super alignments team, which take care of the ethical alignment of ChatGPT. Before I go on to a little bit more on this topic, I declare that I have no commercial interest. So I don't have any conflict I don't have any AI stocks. I don't particularly hate OpenAI. I'm just saying that OpenAI and Anthropic and Google all have a different ethos what I mentioned in the Greek, of what is the best way to develop AI. So they try to embed this ethos, including commercial interest, in their AI product. And this is easily verifiable when you ask a very technical question to various LLM. They will give you the more or less same answers. But if you have asked a very sensitive, politically or culturally sensitive question to, for instance, Elon Musk's X and Google Gemini, you will have a completely different answers. The reason is they are trained in a different way. They are aligned different way. So ethos of each big tech company are actually affecting their technology, and AI is immature technology. So we have a elbow room to put into our core values in the desirable way of making AI technology in the future. So I think that's how we influence funding structure, a little bit at least. And I very much want Beyond AI project will get a better funding in the future and go on this kind of research and have a more desirable future of AI development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, well, let me shift us slightly from structures of power to questions of collaboration, which I think quite important for AI development and also implementation. So if funding and institutional policies shape what can be researched, collaboration shapes how research is actually done. So given the complexities of AI's ethical and social implications, many people, scholars, policymakers argue that truly effective development of AI require close collaboration between engineers and scholars in the humanities and social sciences. But it is actually quite difficult and challenging to collaborate with among scholars and researchers in different disciplines, not only disciplines, but also business and research institutions like universities. So what do you think desirable and interdisciplinary interactions actually look like in practice? And I think all of you have some experience for your own projects for collaboration. So it would be great if you could share your also experience as well. So let me maybe start with Professor Yi.
I was very fortunate after I got back from England to South Korea in 2002. I got involved in the various government committees which have diverse expertise. Social science, law, humanities, and engineers and natural sciences, looking at the various issues of frontier sciences. And I have a very interesting episode during these kind of discussions. I hope that illuminate what I want to say here. During the discussion, one of the sociologists used the word, Korean word meaning power, 권력. And he used this word to the natural science professors, that because you have a power, you have a responsibility to use this power very wisely. And that's why we need this kind of social discussion. And immediately, this natural science professors got angry. I mean, we don't have any power. We don't have any 권력. I mean, we are just, very hardworking people who try to get a really good scientific result, and that's all. We don't have power. At that time, I realized the power, even the same Korean word 권력, means different in social scientific the context and the ordinary commonsensical word. At least in South Korea, in ordinary context, 권력, the power, means immediately evoke some kind of misuse of power, like politicians using their power to change the certain irregular procedures, for instance. But in the social science context, power has some technical meaning, 권력, which is just the range of influence one agent can have over the other agent. So in that sense, power is very neutral. It doesn't have any negative connotation. But natural scientists immediately understand power in this negative connotation way. And I think this happens all the time when we have interdisciplinary discussions, because each discipline has a very technical meaning of a certain same sounding concept, which can have many problems. And I think we have to be open-minded that the very familiar word to me could have a very different meaning for other experts, and we try to find out what exactly he or she meant by the same concept and try to come up with a comprehensive view about the subject. And that's one way of making productive discussion of interdisciplinary studies. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we do use kind of different languages, or even the same languages but in different meaning. Thank you, Professor Spoden.
Yeah, so my experience is very similar to what you just told us. That in the beginning of like collaboration, you always have to find like a common language to be able to discuss certain topics, or to even know what the others are talking about. And then, but my experience is after some time, if you work together and you come from very different disciplines, that you develop this common language, and but it's kind of like your group language then. And if somebody comes from, or I had this experience like during a winter school, there we were only scholars from the humanities and social sciences, but still also among the humanities and social sciences, you have very different meanings sometimes to concepts which seem to be the same. And then like after 1-2 days, we had guest speakers from outside, and then we realized that our understanding, or that after a very short time, we had our own language, and we also had kind of our own opinions about some things. And I think then you reach a point when it's also again important to reflect on like your inner group dynamics, and to engage with the outer world again. And because your question was about interdisciplinary collaboration, I think it's also, so in my opinion, it's always good to include, if you design technology for a certain purpose or a certain target group, then it's always important to include these people also into your research, and from the start. And I think sometimes here, like social science or humanities scholars can also take over like a mediating role. And this is also a little bit connected to your earlier questions about the funding, I think, as well, because these kind of collaborations, and also like to include like, the people who the target groups into the research, like to have like a co-design or co-production process, is also you need more time. It's very intensive in planning and also funding, and I think and to include people from the start is sometimes also like from the conceptualization phase is sometimes difficult because you don't have the funding yet, and so. Grants, which for the planning of projects should also, I think, include this kind of funding to make it possible. And then I think another challenge is so first it takes time, it takes additional work, and this should be included in the planning and also covered by funding. And then I think another aspect, a challenging aspect, is the interdisciplinary work. It's difficult sometimes to publish, and maybe for this we need like new funding opportunity, publishing opportunities, and maybe also new formats. And so my recent experience is that, like, also for social scientists, when you go to a social scientist conference, it's compared to like more engineering or like human-computer interaction or human-robot interaction conferences, the fees are so different. Like if I tell my employer, please pay like $900 for the next conference, they will say like, where are we supposed to take the money from? So, but I just learned like for these kind of conferences, that's normal. And this has also something to do with funding, I think. So I think there are many, many hurdles, but in the end, it can be very beneficial for all parts involved.
Thank you, Professor Itatsu. Just briefly, we have 50 seconds.
50 seconds, okay. So interdisciplinary collaboration is crucial. However, currently it is low priority, low evaluation, high burden, and it doesn't really make it worthwhile. So some kind of realignment needs to happen with funding and with evaluation within our higher education system, I think, as well as in the research field. I think that's under 50 seconds.
Thank you. Yes, we still have 20 seconds. Okay, thank you. Well, because of the time, we have to wrap up our session. Thank you so much for your participation. And I think all of these discussions show critical AI studies is not just one perspective or one approach to AI, but there are multiple, I think it is important to think about AI from diverse, multiple perspectives, interdisciplinary and interinstitutionally. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the exciting talks, Professor Ii, Professor Spoden, Professor Itatsu, and Associate Professor Hisano. Now we will begin part 2, the panel discussion. This session will be conducted in Japanese.
Please allow me to introduce our panelists from the left side of the stage. Professor Ai Hisano, Associate Professor of the Interfaculty Initiative in Information Studies, and Professor Yuji Ikegaya, Professor at Graduate School of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Professor Kenichi Ohki, Professor of Graduate School of Medicine, International Research Center for Neurointelligence, Professor Hitoshi Tabata, Professor of Graduate School of Engineering, Professor Eiji Saitoh, Professor at the Graduate School of Engineering, and Professor Tetsuya Harada, Professor at the Research Center for Advanced Science and Technology. And the moderator is Professor Masami Hagiya, Director of the Institute for AI and Beyond. Now I hand over to you, Professor Hagiya. Thank you very much. This symposium, in the very last part of the symposium, panel discussion is usually conducted in Japanese. And this time too, we have 3 new academic fields emerged. And in Japanese, we would like to have a very frank and informal discussion in the panel discussion. This is my intent. But on the other hand, so far, we have heard presentations from the 3 fields, and as you understood, there is a huge diversity. And in the earlier session, we talked about diversity as well. So depending on the session, some session went wild, if I may say so. So in this panel discussion, these 3 new academic fields, I would like to have some format for our discussion. So we are going to follow a certain format in this discussion to give you more explanation regarding the 3 fields. This shows the Beyond AI introduction shows you the same picture. This is about mid and long-term research segments, leaders and sub-leaders, as you can see the pictures. And here, leaders are now assembled on the stage. This is the flow of the discussion today. So we have only 40 minutes. So we have to contain our discussion in this time frame. So it is minute by minute precision, but I don't think this will be observed. So this is the last panel, last session, and I was told that we can go a little bit overboard. So I hope we will be able to have a very active discussion. Now, to start, 3 new academic fields. Apart from those 3, I want to invite another speaker. You can see Professor Harada's picture here, and he has been working at the core of AI studies. I want to ask Professor Harada to talk about beyond AI activities. And then for each of the 3 academic fields, new fields, the definition of the fields has to be provided in the first place. And based on that, I would like to have comments from each leader of the fields, and then have a question and answer session with the audience. This is how I would like to proceed with the panel discussion today. Now I hand over to Professor Harada. Thank you for the kind introduction. I am Harada. The advancement of AI itself, I am leading this project. In this project, Sugiyama Sensei, and this is co-proposed with Professor Sugiyama as well. As you know well, LLM and other generative AI, the fundamental foundational models, and what kind of data to be fed in, depending on task given, we can expect quite good predictive models. However, in reality, if we are to use this technology in practical use in each domain, the high quality training data has to be collected in order to retrain foundational models. That is the current status. And this is what we proposed 6 years ago. And in this way, in each domain, high quality data has to be collected, and also there are rare and unknown events that have to be addressed. However, this is the challenge we are facing, although Gen AI is becoming very, very popular. Therefore, in order to disseminate the foundational models in the society, we have to go over these problems. In order to solve these problems, we like to build automatic learning of highly accurate prediction models from limited supervised data. There are so many topics we are handling, and mainly speaking, we have 4 topics. The weakly supervised learning, transfer learning, domain adaptation, non-Euclidean machine learning. With the limited time available today, I want to focus on weakly supervised learning. Now, weakly supervised learning, what is it? Professor Sugiyama's group is leading this part of our project. And the image understanding, voice speech recognition, machine translation, you are using this technology. However, we need to use weakly supervised learning. This is the supervised learning. However, in some application areas, training data is not readily available. For example, medical care, you have to go to doctors to provide an annotation. However, doctors are very busy, so it is not very practical. And also natural disasters, materials, and privacy. Due to these issues, it is impossible to collect supervised data. In order to overcome this problem, Professor Sugiyama's team wants to make use of weakly supervised data, which is easily obtainable, in order to obtain high-quality data. Now, one example is data from positive unlabeled classification. To be more specific, the click prediction of the web data is easy example. The users are interested in something and they click link, and this is a positive data, if you will. On the other hand, the link which has not been clicked, and that was not clicked because user was not interested in, or there were too many clicks and therefore they didn't look into each click. So we can't make a judgment. We can distinguish. So click to link is a positive data and we can use. However, unclicked data is not unlabeled data. So this is how we treat and make a distinction. So with this unsupervised classification data, we can get the high quality data. So weekly supervised classification problem wide ranging. For example, if data is given only confidence or the similarity and dissimilarity of data is only provided. And also, in each problem should not be solved separately. So weekly supervisor classification needs to be solved with theory and algorithm developed by Professor Sugiyama's team. That is the biggest result, achievement. And this can be applied to the various applications. And it is published in English, machine learning from weak supervision, as you can see. And also that can be applied to reinforcement learning, imitation learning, a large-scale pre-trained model as well. Let me talk about domain adaptation, which is led by my team. So domain adaptation, what is it? To start with, in terms of motivation, we have the same motivation. In real world, we want to reduce cost of collecting supervised data as much as possible in order to improve the quality of data. More specifically, we have a source domain where we can get a lot of labeled data. However, there is a target domain where label data is scarce. So we want to transfer knowledge from the source domain to target domain. So in terms of simulation, the autonomous driving and robot data can be collected, and that can be applied to the real world. If that functions, that's good. However, if we do that, we found that this is not successful. And there is a difference between simulation and real world. That is what we call the domain gap. And the field of machine learning that studies methods for constructing predictors that eliminate the domain gap and achieve high performance in the target domain is called domain adaptation. So we want AI that keeps functioning reliably even when the environment changes. So on various conditions, problem setting differs. The availability of label, could we access source data, model parameters, and also label space issues and others. So this is too much of a detail, so let me skip explanation. But the problem of domain adaptation was solved separately using a separate algorithm and theories. However, we have to establish theory and algorithm for general solution in domain adaptation. Our theoretical background could be diluted if we don't do that. Therefore, we want to establish a theory algorithm, which is common. I have so many things to tell you, but let me summarize. The AI advancement is our project, and we want to establish a learning theory algorithm for prediction models utilizing weak supervised data. I talked about knowledge transfer theory and algorithm as well. And going forward, by integrating continuous learning with theories of weakly supervised learning and domain adaptation, we will realize intelligent systems that autonomously become smarter in the real-world environment. And we want to continue this study going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're only accepting questions for participants at the venue in person, but are there any questions? If not, thank you very much. In Beyond AI, as was introduced, we've been engaged in AI mainstream research, so I hope that all of you will take interest in our activities. Next, regarding the 3 new academic research fields, let us engage in some discussion. First of all, the physics of intelligence. For each academic area, myself and the professors cooperated in order to come up with a short text of approximately 1 paragraph. First of all, regarding the intellectual physics, to pursue law of physics that control the intelligence, and by implementing through physical device and physical law area that pursues new knowledge, spin wave, spin glass, quantum fingerprinting. These physical phenomena are utilized in physical computing, and this is the first step. In the experimental physics of intelligence, the manifestation process of intelligence is captured through physical law such as symmetry, and realizes through physical device the complexity, and elucidate through AI the phenomenon. In the first session, there was an explanation on symmetry, and I wish Professor Saitoh to explain about that later. These are some of the results delivered through Beyond AI. Quantum fingerprinting, decoding, research on this topic. First of all, and using quantum fingerprinting, recognizing numbers, that kind of research was explained. Further, Professor Tabata talked about fluctuation, yuragi, and reservoir calculation through spin glass was an outcome of Professor Tabata, and an application of yuragi is gas sensor. Now, Professor Saitoh and Professor Tabata, could you add to that?
This phrase are very, very elaborately done. What I wanted to do really is beyond AI. We would like to understand intelligence with numbers or code equation. I think many people have thought about that with that motivation. But naturally, if we have such an equation formula to describe this, it is possible to use other formulas. Historically speaking, physics have been doing this in many ways. And more recently, the Nobel Prize recently give award to the first pioneering physicist. In the case of University of Tokyo too, for example, the complexity was one of the viewpoints. Now, what is different in our case from the past research? Using the advancement of physics of last few years, we would like to create a new area of AI studies. In my area, we use gauge theory to describe intelligence, and Professor Mogi and I had a 1 hour conversation, but we couldn't come to a conclusion in terms of how we can best communicate that to general public. But someday in the future, I hope that people will understand, and I hope we'll be able to produce a language to explain this. The quantum physics has been produced, and thanks to that, it took a lot of time for quantum physics to come up with a language so that people in the world can understand what it is. So by using a formula, and there to some extent we can do it with geology, And however, a neural network is the first step. And to what are we going to use? Naturally, by using the simple systems, maybe we can do something similar to what AI can do. Therefore, we don't have to use gigantic networks. Therefore, you often emphasize the importance of universality. That is very important. As long as we can find a universality, everything that follows would be easier according to our history. So that can change the current state of AI. What is behind this? The control of fluctuation, that is a concept behind that. So in that sense, Professor Tabata's Yuragi electronic device is a common feature between us. So where could we see the advancement in the Yuragi? And that is about Maxwell's demon. So I think we could mention Maxwell's demon in our presentation too. So 5 years from now, with what language this concept will prevail in the future? What language? Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Tabata? Thank you very much. Bioengineer major and electrical engineering are my major fields. So semiconductor electronic devices to AI. I look at how these devices and technology can contribute to AI. And this time, one of the topics we discussed is Professor Corp field, and that was mentioned by Professor Ohki. Half a century ago, spin glass physical concept was suggested, and neuron information processing, the simple equation was described. And this is a great model, and it was quite a revelation. And 2 years ago, in 2025, it led to the Nobel Physics Award. So I think it was very much to the point. A simple equation that describes the truth, and from something very simple, it expands into ideas and various diverse application. And I was once again reminded of that importance. So I personally wish to, just by using one coefficient, we may be able to, as I said, it's like a spiral, helical structure of scientific evolution. So Coffield was looking at the same thing half a century ago. But depending on the generation, there has been evolution in the technological understanding. And in the next phase, we may be able to use and implement that concept and model. And I hope to contribute to that phase. Spin glass is important as a concept, and it's also important as a matter that realizes fluctuation. So it's something real. And we happily were successful in discovering that. So we truly hope that that could lead to social implementation. That's the concept. And I wanted to give that message.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to the next field, brain AI fusion. And in this way, we put together that definition here. And this research field aims to fuse the brain with AI to create new forms of intelligence through research integrating brain-specific information processing mechanisms into AI to create brain-inspired AI, and research expanding brain function through brain AI fusion, research integrating iPS cell-derived brain organoids with AI, research integrating human neurodiversity with AI. So we have successfully achieved the fusion of the brain and AI, thus created a new academic field. I think there are many ways to fuse brain and AI, but we are promoting the study in the direction of brain AI fusion. There are many achievements already. In the second session today, the leaders and professors have explained. Professor Ohki explained the first bullet point, that is through analysis of neural fluctuations and their incorporation into AI, vulnerability of adversarial attacks was reduced. And Professor Ikeuchi talked about the connectoid research results, although it was not presented, but in terms of beyond AI, bio-neuron function and future international symposium was held. I think this was very important achievement. And Professor Ikegaya talked about the distinction between English and Spanish by RAT, and also, as you can see, heart rate and breathing feedback related research is going on. And also Professor Nagai talked about visualization of cognitive personality using robots. Now, Professor Ohki and Professor Ikegaya, could you give a supplementary comment?
Then let me go first. In session 1, we took up the physics of intelligence, and I came here looking forward to listening to the presentations. And we did not have any prep meeting, but Professor Saitoh and Professor Tabata both talked about use of fluctuation in AI. And I'm doing a similar research, so I found many similarities, so I found those presentations extremely interesting. In my presentation, at the beginning, I talked about history, and so far, AI has learned from the brain network structural aspect. Much of what it has learned from the brain is network structure, but by taking in noise or fluctuation and yuragi, more flexible and creative AI may be developed. Thank you.
Brain AI fusion, as it says. So the fusion of AI and the brain, if some people in general hear this, maybe they would think of this as an innovation, bringing together neuroscience and AI. So neuroscience-inspired new kind of AI can be produced. However, what we are doing is more the low order. What would happen if we connect AI and brain, and at the end of the day, by using AI, the brain information can be read. That is a big important point. Even if we log activity of brain, Fourier conversion and classical mathematics will lose a lot of information, and then we can't decode anything. However, AI can produce a raw data for us, and distinction between Spanish and English is now possible, and that result is a very big achievement. So, as I said in my presentation earlier, if we apply this to human beings, what happened? So perhaps the biggest concern would be the ethical issue. So maybe humanity would be collapsing, and also this is going to be a betrayal to the God, and there are many people who would hate that kind of things from happening. Therefore, technology can deprive people of zest for living, and also human beings prioritize well-being, and I want to put it at the highest level of priority.
Thank you. On brain AI fusion, if there are questions from the floor, please raise your hand. Yes, please go ahead. It's not just about brain, but I have a question on physics. Thank you very much for the exciting presentations. I was listening carefully, feeling very excited. But as I listened to the presentations, it seemed like information processing was the key, and many of what you said was regarding the pursuit of information processing. But on the other hand, generative AI today is about high-dimensional data being collected en masse, and that is the key to changing performance. That's one perspective. So enormous data has to be collected, and from such requirement perspective, through physics, intelligence equation in the brain system, if we can solve the bottleneck of collection of enormous data, then is there an approach in the extension of the methodology currently applied? If you could share with us your thoughts. Thank you. In terms of capability, there's a more complex challenge. It's not just task that is given being done perfectly. Then in the case of quiet or tacit AI, they would be more successful. When AI and humans compete, humans cannot defeat AI. It's the same thing. And rather than upgrading processing, cognition or will, if they are drawn into equation, what kind of equation will it be? It's not being trained. So if a will or cognition is created spontaneously, what kind of equation would be applied? If it's training, it's a result of training by enormous data versus something spontaneous. Then if we have both, I think it would be great.
So from the brain side, anything? Yes. We have to have a different type of innovation, in my view. AlphaGo typically is exceeding human power, and amount of training is so different. Have several millions of trials are necessary in order to increase AI's capability. However, in the case of humans, only several thousands is okay. Therefore, mechanism of behavior is completely different. Therefore, if we base a technology on human neural network, I think it will be insufficient. However, perhaps from the completely different perspective, neural activity innovation would emerge.
Thank you, Professor Hanada. Thank you very much. Originally, like Kanetsu-san, computer vision was being done and we were collecting enormous data, but in computer vision, using internet data to do trading, that was fine in itself, but the data on the internet, it's only information people think it's interesting in the real world. In other words, all the data goes through the human filter. So there's enormous data, but we're just circulating finite information. When we live in the real world, information is infinite. But in the midst of infinite information, how do we pick up useful information? And I think that is the essential problem. In other words, we only think in three-dimensional, but if we think about the fourth dimension, then we may be able to discover the good information, and that's one of the origins of intellect. So from the infinite dormant information, how do we pick up? If you have any good clues from physics or brain science, then we would be most appreciative of such findings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point in time, would you like to say something as a response? Yes, I totally agree. Basically speaking, earlier, the models that was presented earlier, that was from the, in terms of the predictive encoding, the human beings do not use filters, and the human have a will to decide what to look at. However, human beings do not have a strong will. If we give a strong will to AI or system, the best combination is strong will and all the knowledge. So maybe at the end of the day, this is a power of representation, and this is closer to existing parameter domain.
Thank you very much. Let's go to the next discussion point. The final point is critical AI studies. Based upon LC and AI ethics, the existing human perspective, social perspective, and value order is once again questioned in this academic field. In this field, AI's creativity, how intellect ought to be, how AI changes the human perspective is the focus in order to make and naturalize certain values. Ethics is not reduced to a checklist for compliance through embedding questions which are not sufficiently captured in ethical guidelines and governance rulemaking into the design and development of technology to come up with an intellectual framework or fundamentally rethinking the nature of AI itself. So this is a text created mainly by Professor Hisano. Would you like to add to that? Thank you very much. I prepared this additional slide. This is almost the same as what I explained in session 3. So I will not go into the details of the BAI Global Forum activities, but to date, we have been thinking how we can develop critical AI studies, and that has been one of the core elements of our activities. And there are 3 pillars: global joint research, outreach, and education. Next, could we come to the next slide? And so far, we have been focusing on how we think about critical AI studies and how we establish critical AI studies, and our activities have focused on those objectives. As one field, one or some fields or some outcome, we have suggested 4 outcomes, which I already mentioned, so I will not mention them in detail here. But in terms of critical AI studies, we didn't talk about concrete examples, so I would like to give some concrete examples of critical AI studies. AI ethics. Critical AI studies and AI ethics are closely related. When we use the word ethics, what can you do with AI? What you should not do with AI? What's the criteria to judge good and bad? Yes, it is a criteria for good and bad, but we're not pursuing a checklist for judgment. Rather, what kind of society is this? What kind of technology is sought by the society? And we want to think deep about that kind of subject, and I think that will be one of the essential elements. So in that sense, regarding physics and brain science, you talked about research projects, and Professor Harada talked about how we pick up information, and I sympathize with that point. So what kind of subject do we focus on in order to delve deep into that subject? And what's the reason we have to do that right now? And I think critical AI studies would be a starting point to think about that. And we are talking about this as study on AI, but studies or working style or attitude to work is something that we should be thinking, not just in the context of AI. So in critical AI studies, it's an area to once again question the existing order. That's the definition, but if I may give one example, and this is a frequently quoted point, but dichotomical gender type of discussion on chatbot and voice assistant and female voice is quite often used. You hear. Why is female voice used? Heteronormical dichotomy type of gender conflict may be an issue we should also raise. And another example is with the emergence of generative AI, drawings and music can be created by AI with high level of precision. Can you call that art? Or what is the definition of creativity? So those are some questions that are being asked. But is AI creative? Rather than the question of whether AI is creative, where have we found creativity so far? I think that kind of new question will be asked. You can use AI for this. You can't use AI for that. That kind of value judgment is important, but in critical AI studies, it's not the guardian of technology or watchdog of technology. This is an academic field to once again question those points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to ask you exactly that question. Thank you very much for responding in advance. Lastly, mid to long-term research leaders. Regarding beyond AI, could you give us one final comment before we conclude this panel discussion? May I? I was thinking about the order of speech from this way. So I thought you were looking at me. So I just wanted to ask everybody to say final comment. So let me, in relation to the last question as well, the role of physics is actually similar to the question raised. The dangerous thing about AI is that AI will go along with what only AI can understand. For example, in order to prove the theorem of mathematics, AI would come up with 1 million pages of substantiation. What does it happen to human? 1 million pages. Human beings do not understand all these pages. Therefore, the human would not understand what is that question and what is the right answer. Therefore, if we leave everything up to AI, things would go ahead in this way. Therefore, as simple as possible. That is because humans can understand. Humans can understand only simple and concise things. Therefore, for AI, what is at the core, what is essence, that doesn't matter. However, from the physical perspective, we have to go hand in hand with humans and AI.
Thank you. I said regarding beyond AI, but you can freely speak on anything. So closing comments from each of you. Professor Tabata and Professor Harada asked to speak at the end. We talked about the keyword yuragi, which is the physical phenomenon, and stochastic resonance was explained. And Langevin equation is a simple equation that explains that. The most simple Langevin equation does not include the function of memory. So Markov type of assumption, case by case. But generalized Langevin equation is there, and then in that equation, there's the memory function, so it's closer to human beings. So there is transformation and expansion in physics and adjustment. So in such a way, we're talking about beyond AI. So as something that comprehensively covers AI, we hope that we can contribute to the development of AI. And in the first half, Professor Ohki asked a question on where's the border of Yuragi. It's noise if you think about it technically, but at the same time, in our daily lives, there could be ambiguity, you could be waving, and some human aspect of mental fluctuation also exists. And that cannot be expressed explicitly in words, physically. So that's, I wouldn't say Japanese, but something new may come about, which is comprehensive. So by doing research on Yuragi, I am fluctuating every day.
First of all, for the past 6 years, I was able to engage in mid to long-term research. Thank you for that. And listening to other people speak, I understand everybody's making progress, centering around AI as a common theme, the social science and brain science and physics. So this is interdisciplinary research, and I am grateful for the environment which we have been given. And we should not lose this momentum going forward for the next 4 years. I want to make progress in this area.
I'm so appreciative of Beyond AI. And as I participated, I began to think about what intellect is about. Brain creates intelligence, and AI creates intelligence. And what I have been thinking is about life, is reducing material entropy locally. And if intellect is also aligned, then locally the information entropy to be reduced. So that's how I call intelligence. So based upon such definition of intelligence, AI is more intellectual than human beings. And intelligence is only one aspect of the whole. Like in the trinity of intelligence, emotion, and will, it's only one aspect. So in my area of dynamic science, maybe it's an area where I have to take a deep dive into. That was my experience through the 6 years. Thank you.
So mid to long-term research, this is going to be a conclusion, and I happen to be seated here at the time this ends. However, about a year ago, I became the leader of this research project. Before that, Professor Hayashi, Professor Idatsu have been leading the project for the 5 or 6 years. So it so happened that I succeeded at the ending point of this project. Therefore, I am grateful for the research network and foundation of research which has been built by predecessors. So I took over that, and I ran for the past 1 year. So I can only thank for the efforts made by these two predecessors. I myself, I am specialized in the history of the 19th century America. Therefore, I never thought that I would be engaged in AI studies, and I never imagined that I'll be speaking on such a august occasion. If we look at modern society, contemporary society, that is very interesting, but at the same time, in various fields, AI is a problem, and also at the same time, it is an exciting field. So I am very grateful for the opportunity given to me to study. And Professor Hagiya, thank you for supporting me for the past 6 years. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful 6 years. I thank SoftBank and Professor Hagiya for your contribution. When I think about AI, there's rapid evolution, and we tend to become overexcited. Now, the evolution is very rapid, but we don't have much clear foresight. But if we look deep, something that was right, 60 to 70% has become 100%. But what was originally 0% or 1% right, has that increased to 90%? No, because difficult problems continue to be difficult even today. So we will take a ride on AI. We can't miss the train, but we would like to focus on the essence. And I have seen so many research projects disappear in a year or two. And in conferences, in one conference, 20,000 or 30,000 articles are accepted just in one conference. But many of those research projects are destined to disappear. But this is an academic area, so we think what kind of research will survive for 5 years, 10 years' time. And I think that's very important, and that's what I learned in the 6 years. So I hope that we can continue to do what we ought to be doing.
Thank you very much. At the beginning, I said we may go overboard, but we extended the meeting by many minutes. So I thank everybody for attending, and also my thanks goes to panelists as well. Professor Harada, Professor Saitoh, Professor Tabata, Professor Ohki, Professor Ikegaya, Professor Hisano, and Professor Hagiya, thank you very much for very active discussion. Once again, please give a big round of applause to the panelists and moderator. With that, we conclude the second session panel discussion.
Director of the Institute for AI and Beyond, the University of Tokyo, will deliver the closing remarks. Director Hagiya, please.
はい、本日、ご講演
Thank you very much. I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the speakers who made presentations and asked questions, as well as the operational staff and all attendees, indeed, who stayed until the end. And also, Professor Ohki, who served as MC today. Thank you too. The Beyond AI Joint Project will conclude its mid to long-term basic research this March, and today's symposium marks the final installment of the 6th international symposium we have held so far. Going forward, we will focus on applied research for commercialization primarily through the Beyond AI Cooperative Innovation Partnership. Leveraging its clear exit strategy for commercialization as a major strength, the Beyond AI CIP will also strive to secure funding for basic research. We would be grateful for your continued support for both basic and applied research. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to SoftBank for continuously supporting the Beyond AI Joint Project. With that, I would like to conclude my closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Before closing this symposium, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to all participants, speakers, panelists, and everyone who joined us today, both online and in person.